It is Flag Day in Dallas. The Dallas Mavericks selecting Cooper Flagg, the super freshman out of Duke. And man, they get to recharge their franchise after trading away Luka Doncic, and now in comes Cooper Flagg, the fifth player from Duke, selected first overall in the modern draft era. Elton Brand, Kyrie, Zion, Paolo, and now Cooper added to that list. A lot of one-namers there. You could just say Elton, Kyrie, Zion, Paolo, and Cooper. And back here in studio, as we welcome you to our NBA draft coverage on the clock on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Jeep. There's only one. We've got a cavalcade of stars here. The network of stars, as Gary Parrish would like to say, CBS Sports insider, director of scouting at 24/7 Sports, Adam Finkelstein, and our own Avery Johnson, former NBA Coach of the Year, helped the Spurs win a championship in 1999, hit the game-winning shot. He's with us as well, comes to us from Dallas. Avery, we'll get to you in a moment here, but the grade first from you, Adam, is what?
It's an A, and quite frankly, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. This plan did not have a high likelihood of working out. After they traded Doncic, there was less than a 2% chance of getting Cooper Flagg, but that 2% ended up being all they needed. Let's just be clear. He is good enough right now to help in the championship aspirations that Nico Harrison says they have right now if Kyrie Irving can get back healthy and team up with Anthony Davis. And then he is good enough to build a bridge to their future and be the face of this program. He impacts the game on both ends of the floor. He does not need the ball in his hands in order to change the game. He's made strides as a shooter. He's made strides as a creator. He's a good athlete. He's a smart player, and he is an alpha-level competitor, a home run for Dallas.
Avery, what's the scene? What's the vibe there? I'm sure the vibes are high there at American Airlines Center.
The vibe is at an all-time high here for a draft party. The fans are rushing out of their seats to buy his jersey. He's going to wear number 32. In dedication to his mom, Mary. So the fans have been scrambling, trying to get to the souvenir shops to buy that number 32 jersey that's going to be hot off the press. The fans are thrilled, lots of energy in the building. This young man who could have very well, if he could have skipped college, he could have played in the NBA right out of high school. He's just that good. I agree with you guys. This guy has a high ceiling. I think his game is going to transition seamlessly to the NBA. He's got the size, the athleticism, the hand-eye coordination. I believe the experience, at least just helping his team get to the Final Four, ACC Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year. This guy, he's won in college in high school at Mount Verd. This is an exciting night for the Dallas Mavericks.
Gary, they had just a 1.8% chance to land the #1 pick in the draft lottery. Here they are, drafting Cooper Flagg after trading away Luka Doncic, who Nico Harrison didn't realize was that important to the fan base, which I think is malpractice, even saying that out loud. What does this mean for this franchise? They lose a franchise player, and now they potentially get a franchise player in Cooper Flagg.
It means everything. Like Fink said, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. I know people can disagree about whether it was proper to trade Luka Doncic under those set of circumstances, but it was undeniably unpopular, and most people think it was a mistake. Similarly, if you're at a blackjack table and you got 19 against a 6, you probably shouldn't be hitting that, but you might get a 2, and sometimes it works out.
Yeah,
that is more or less what happened here.
That was good. I like that.
They got lucky to remake the franchise very quickly after making a trade that could have damaged them for a decade plus. Now we'll see what they do with it. But again, this is a big night for that Dallas franchise.
Just because the Spurs picking 2nd overall, and they take Dylan Harper out of Rutgers, which is a first for the Rutgers program, a top 5 draft pick. They have never had a top 5 draft pick in their program history, and they get it in Dylan Harper, as Dylan Harper is headed to the San Antonio Spurs. Adam, I know you like Dylan Harper, and this felt like a lock for him to go 2nd overall. What's the grade here as Dylan Harper goes to the San Antonio Spurs?
This is also an A. The Spurs are a franchise that, let's face it, has done well in the lottery. battery. They got Wemby a couple years ago, and now they got Dylan Harper, and that is an inside-out tandem that they are going to be able to build around for the next 15 years. And I mean that very literally. I mean, you have a center and a point guard now that have a chance to be perennial all-stars in this league. Dylan Harper is that talented. We are talking about a big lead guard with a terrific natural feel for the game. He can create, and if the shooting ever clicks, if he becomes a consistent threat from the three-point line, all of a sudden the upside conversation, it's going to go to an entirely different level. GP, I think this is a home run for the Spurs, and I understand there's fit questions here, but I still think you have to take Dylan Harper.
That's exactly right. You take him, you take best player available. Once upon a time, there was a franchise that did not take Michael Jordan because they thought they already had a shooting guard in Clyde Drexler. That's how you end up making monumental mistakes. This is the right pick, get the talent into the franchise, and then figure out how it fits.
Sam Bowie. That was tough. That was tough, Avery. You remember that. Look, there's a situation here, Avery, about the fit, right? Because you got De'Aaron Fox. You have Steph Castle, who won Rookie of the Year, albeit because Jared McCain got injured for the 76ers. He was on a heck of a run early in his rookie season in Philadelphia. How's this going to work adding Dylan Harper?
I agree with Adam and Gary. This is this is all about quality depth. You cannot have too many good players. Think about how Indiana and OKC look at their team. Sure, you know, Tyrese Halliburton, who unfortunately got injured, and you got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But at the end of the day, both of these two teams were the best teams. Why did New York Knicks lose? Because their 7, 8, 9, and 10 men weren't as good as the guys coming off of Indiana Pacers bench. So this is a good problem for the Spurs to have. In my opinion, he's the best player available. You'll figure it out. The regular season in the NBA is a long season. It's 82 games. I'm sure De'Aaron Fox is not going to play in every game, but to be able to pair him with De'Aaron Fox and Steph Castle, obviously Victor Wembanyama, these guys are all young, and they can have a significantly bright future if they can stay healthy. So this was a no-brainer for the Spurs in terms of this pick.
Well, he's got a lot to live up to, right? His father, Ron, was drafted 8th overall in 1986 by my Cleveland Cavaliers, played 15 NBA seasons, and won 5 NBA championships. And hey, it's not out of the question to think that Dylan Harper and the Spurs could one day win an NBA title. Harper headed to the San Antonio Spurs with the 2nd overall selection. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Jeep. With the 3rd overall selection, the Philadelphia 76ers draft VJ Edgecombe, the freshman out of Baylor, Big 12 Freshman of the Year, first ever top 5 pick from Baylor in the modern draft era. He led Big 12 freshmen in points per game and steals per game last season. He set a Baylor freshman record with 68 steals last season, tied for the 4th most in the Big 12. As you take a look at the 76ers' past 5 top 3 draft picks, hoping that VJ Edgecombe will work out. Joel Embiid still there. The other 3 guys on that list did not work out for them. VJ Edgecombe hoping to work out for them in Philadelphia. That's my hot take, Adam. What's your hot take here on your grade? I would say that those 3 other guys were just okay.
Yeah, I think this is solid. I don't think this is spectacular. VJ Edgecombe, let's be clear, is a spectacular athlete, has a chance to be an exceptional defensive player, has a chance to put a ton of pressure on the rim with his ability to get downhill and his athleticism. Where we have got to see growth is in his guard skills. Can he make spot-up threes? Can he evolve into a secondary ball handler? I don't think he's going to be a primary ball handler. At least it would take a really accelerated development to have that. I don't know how much he can help drive winning right away, but I think he is a very quality long-term piece. This is solid. It's not spectacular.
Only shot 34% from 3 in the one season at Baylor, but throughout high school was statistically better than that. So I don't know that that's a major area of concern, but if he's going to maximize all of his potential, he's got to be a better three-point shooter than that. The athleticism is elite, arguably the best athlete available in this draft. Like we talked about earlier, incredible two-way potential. The approach on the defensive end is a little inconsistent, but that's not unusual for a teenager. Once the Ace Bailey approach complicated this, if Philadelphia was going to execute this pick, VJ Edgecombe always made some sense.
All right, let's go back out to Dallas where Egor Johnson is. Avery, what do you think of the pick here? VJ Edgecombe, 3rd overall to the Philadelphia 76ers.
Yeah, I'll pick it back off of what Gary's last point. I think because of Ace Bailey's lack of getting involved with teams through the interviewing and the workout process, he probably would have gone 3rd, so I think that complicated it. But I like this pick for Philadelphia. VJ Edgecombe, who was the 2024, he averaged 16 points a game for his Bahamas team in that Olympic qualifying. I think that turned some heads in a positive direction for this young man. 6'5", 190 pounds, very athletic. I think he's going to continue to develop. I think his body, he'll end up, weighing about 210, maybe 215 throughout his NBA career, but super athletic. We'll see what happens in terms of this backcourt with Tyrese Maxey. You always can use wing defenders, and I think he's going to be a nice addition.
Gary, are you surprised that they did not deal this pick away?
Not surprised, but that was obviously always a possibility given that if you've got Joel Embiid healthy at this stage in his career, Paul George healthy at this stage in his career, with the East completely opening up with injuries to Jason Tatum, Tyrese Halliburton, Damian Lillard, there was some thought that there is nobody available at 3, whether it's Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Tre Johnson, anybody else, who is going to be able to help you as much next season as a veteran would. But Philadelphia, at least in this moment, has decided to execute the pick, take VJ Edgecombe, and at this point, it appears he's going to be a part of that roster.
Perhaps the price was too high. Daryl Morey is not just going to strike any deal in Philadelphia. Sometimes he does, but here in the draft, he tends not to do that. What did you make of this fit here for Philadelphia?
Well, for me, I have very little separation, or no tier break, if you will, between prospects 3 and 6 on my board, which is why when you talk about trade scenarios, I would have considered moving down. When you talk about fit, I think someone like Kon Knueppel potentially slide in at the 3, where you already have Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain in the backcourt. But again, when you're this high at top of the lottery, they might not see it like I do, and you have to take the best available prospect, even if there is a better fit.
All right, let's now welcome in CBS Sports senior writer Matt Norlander to our NBA draft coverage. And Matt, you and I sat a lot here together watching VJ Edgecombe play at Baylor this past season. What's your reaction to him going 3rd overall to the Philadelphia 76ers?
This is not surprising. Philadelphia took it up to the pick and wound up taking the pick. Multiple teams in the lottery told me they expected Philadelphia to try and shift off and trade the pick because, in their opinion, they weren't believed to be overly in love with what they were going to have there at 3. But we don't have too much shock as we've unrolling this draft here at 3. And then, Akeem, I'll let you do the honors, but I actually just got a text on who the 4th pick is. It might have even been come across the stage, but 1 through 4 right now is going to script.
Okay, so VJ Edgecombe, 3rd overall to the Philadelphia 76ers. And look, we'll see how it works out for Philadelphia with all that talent that they've got. But this is a team right now that's got to win. I mean, this is a team that should be winning. Injuries have decimated. We saw them take Jared McCain last season. The kid out of Duke, he was having a phenomenal start to his rookie season and gets cut short by injury. So it's almost like, Gary, this is like a reset for Philadelphia.
I mean, if you look at all the pieces they've tried to put around Joel Embiid over the years to make this thing work, it's just been a rotating cast of characters. And if he's not healthy, then all of this is a moot point. They're not going anywhere without him being healthy. But what they hope is after a procedure and missing much of this season, he comes back, maybe not better than ever, but better than he's been in a while, where he can return to that MVP caliber season that he had just a few years ago. And then at this point, you're hoping that VJ Edgecombe can step in and not play a starring role, but play an impactful role for a team that, if healthy across the board, should be able to compete at the top of the Eastern Conference next.
Well, a team looking for help is the Charlotte Hornets, and their pick is in. And it's Cooper Flagg's teammate, Kon Knueppel, drafted 4th overall to the Charlotte Hornets, a guy that, look, can come in right now and play, Adam. This is a nice pick here for Charlotte. What's your grade as they take Kon Knueppel?
That's exactly right. He can come in and play right now. I'm going to give this a B as well, but I think you hit the nail on the head there. When you're talking about players at the top of the draft, one of the biggest variables is how easily are they going to transition to not being the man offensively. For Kon, we don't have to wonder about that because we just watched it all season at Duke. And what happened in the ACC tournament when Cooper went down down with injury, Kon raised his hand and said, hey, by the way, I can be your alpha too. So he's got on-off ball potential. He's highly skilled. He really knows how to play. He's got a terrific feel for the game. He's going to be able to slide right in. My concern is on the defensive end. Now, he was better than expected this season at Duke, but he wasn't guarding NBA level 2 guards. And when you put him between LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, that's who he's going to have to defend.
And that's the question mark for him, is how well is he going to be able to guard his position? And if not very, then he's going to get targeted over and over again. But on the offensive end of the court, he's going to be able to play, I think, immediately. The shot making is there. Arguably the best shooter in this draft, but he's more than that. He can bounce it. He can play in pick and rolls. He's going to be able to get to his spots. Just because he was Cooper Flagg's teammate doesn't mean he couldn't have been the best player on any number of top 25 teams this season. He just happened to be playing alongside the best player in college basketball, but he'll break away from those shadows pretty quickly and should have a big impact in Charlotte for a long time.
Something I always say when we're watching basketball is make your free throw, kids. He hit free throws at a 91% clip, Matt Norlander. So, look, every NBA coach, executive is going to go, great, this guy can hit free throws. Now the question is, what can he do at the NBA level? But we know that he can come in and play right away. What are the Hornets getting in Kon Knueppel?
Yeah, they're getting a guy who's going to up their locker room and be good on the floor immediately. I think Kon Knueppel is going to be one of the 4 or 5 most impactful players in the NBA as a rookie next season. I talked to his father earlier on Wednesday. They were truly in the dark because they were uncertain about what the Philadelphia would do. Knueppel never worked out with Philadelphia. He worked out with teams 4 through 8 on the board. His workout with Charlotte went excellently. They were hoping it would be Charlotte, but there was no guarantee, so they are highly relieved. And having played at nearby Duke, obviously, there's a little bit of creature comfort there as well. Quick note on the defense. I'll just say this. In talking to some NBA people and talking to the Duke staff throughout the season, Knueppel was an above-average defender, and the most key facet to his defense was he does not make mistakes twice. Now, does he have some physical limitation? Yes. But the thing that he was raved about was as much, if not more, than every single player on that roster, Cooper Flagg included, when he had to learn the schemes defensively and know what he had to do, he did not repeatedly make mistakes. I actually think he can be a very competent, able defender. He plays through his chest on both ends of the floor, should be able to step in and be a 40+% three-point shooter. Charlotte got a good one here, and as I said before, we are chalk now, and we'll see what Utah does at 5. They're a bit of a mystery team. We wait and see if they throw a curveball, but Kon Knueppel to the Hornets, that's a really good get for them and a really awesome story for the oldest of 5 boys out of greater Milwaukee.
Major history for Rutgers. Never had a top 5 draft pick in their program history. They have 2 tonight. Dylan Harper at 2, Ace Bailey at 5 to the Utah Jazz, the 15th college duo selected in the top 5 in the modern draft era. Harper set the Rutgers freshman scoring record with 564 points. Bailey, not far behind him, scored 527 points in his 1 season in Piscataway. As you take a look at the last 5 selections, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, both the super freshmen from Rutgers. And how about this, Adam Finkelstein? Ace Bailey to the Utah Jazz. Maybe was hoping to go to Washington and play for the Wizards.
Is right. And like we said, you don't play chicken with the Angels because you're going to lose. And his camp just lost. I give this an A, an enthusiastic A. Ace Bailey is, in my opinion, a top 3 prospect in this class. His upside is significant. His agency, his representation, he did not work out in Utah. They presumably didn't want to be there. Utah was not going to get bullied. They took the best prospect on the board. That is a process that deserves an A. And in Utah in particular, we know Austin Ainge ran his first draft there. The other thing we were told is that he was not going to be held accountable for previous decisions. Utah took Cody Williams last year. This is a little bit redundant, but Cody Williams did not deliver that immediate return, even though we knew there were going to be some growing pains that anybody expected last year. This is an indication that Ace Bailey is going to go in and have an opportunity to make an immediate impact. And I think in the long run, this could work out very, very well for the Jazz.
I like what Utah did here. In other words, just believing in their evaluation and not letting anything interfere with that. Like Fink said, most people, himself included, had Ace Bailey projected as a top 3 pick in this draft for basically the whole past year. And that only changed really in the past week or so. but the evaluation should have never changed on him. He's still the same prospect you had graded a certain way. So you're going to pass on him for an inferior prospect because why? His advisor doesn't want him there? Ace Bailey's very young. I bet he can be happy pretty much anywhere. You just got to get him there, build the thing around him, and hopefully he can tap into that potential that makes him one of the more intriguing prospects available.
I don't know. I guess I'd rather say I'm a top 5 pick than the slip sliding down the draft because I didn't go and work out for special teams. I mean, if you're a top 5 pick, you're a top 5 pick. And Avery, a lot of responsibility comes with being a top 5 pick. Ace Bailey, going to go to Utah. How would you coach him? How are you going to welcome him to the community? Because maybe he didn't want to go there, but now he's headed there.
I think this is a terrific pick for the Utah Jazz. This is an early Christmas present, whether they celebrate Christmas in Utah or not. But this is a great pick for them. This is a great pick for them. They need guys that can come in and play from day one. This team has been set back for years. Obviously, Danny Ainge's son now is running the show in terms of this draft. This was his first real draft. One of my former players, Collin Sexton, you know, his name has been in the news. We'll see if he's going to remain on this roster. But they need guys that can come in. This kid is ready to go. Obviously, he's got to become a much better free throw shooter, be able to extend his range to the pro NBA. But his size, his athletic ability, this team, the Utah Jazz, they got to find a path forward back to the playoffs. This team has been down for so many years. This kid could have easily fallen to the Washington Wizards. But again, they took the best player available, and I'm really excited about this draft pick for the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, the Jazz were hoping to have the #1 overall pick. This was a team that had an awful record last season, one of the worst in the NBA, and they were hoping to potentially get Cooper Flagg. They get Ace Bailey. That's a pretty good consolation prize at 5 overall here.
Well, and it goes back 3 years when Danny Ainge first arrived, and he traded away Donovan Mitchell, and he traded away Rudy Gobert for some bites at the apple to try and get a star. They have not landed on the star yet. I think that's why they brought in Austin Ainge, someone to truly concentrate and quarterback this draft process. And in this decision, I think I do believe they have a chance of getting a star in Ace Bailey, and I'm not sure there was another player on the board that has the same upside.
And that's exactly right. And you start talking about all the buzzwords connected to prospects, upside, potential. Let's throw Cooper Flagg in a category by himself, but
Sure.
Ace Bailey would be next in terms of if everybody who was available tonight maximizes what they can be as a basketball player. Ace Bailey, if he gets there, it can be as good as anybody other than Cooper Flagg, and I wouldn't even rule out him actually, competing for scoring titles and stuff like that. But he has a long way to go before we get there. He's a flawed prospect, but one that's got incredible potential.
Are, in fact, landing Tre Johnson. Tre Johnson, the kid out of Texas, is headed to Washington, D.C. with the 6th overall pick. Tre Johnson was the SEC Freshman of the Year. A heck of a pick there for the Wizards. What is your grade here for Washington as they get Tre Johnson 6th overall?
I'm giving them an A, both on the caliber of the prospect they acquired, but also on the process. Because I think at the 6th pick, they were put in a position where they had the last option of what I thought was a clear top 6 at this draft. So they were kind of left with whoever's left on the board. And they tried to navigate it to get their guy, and they came darn close. And to GP's point, if Tre Johnson is the contingency plan or the contingency prize, if you will, then that's a really good option because he is an instant offense type of shot maker. He's going to be able to put points on the board right away in the NBA, just like he did at Texas. He's got NBA caliber size, and we saw tremendous growth last year in his efficiency. We knew the counting stats were going to be good at Texas, but the ability to make tough shots when he was the focal point of the opposing defense and the growth he showed as a passer last year were really notable for me in my evaluation of him.
He just checks some obvious boxes that you want NBA players to check in the year 2025. Like he's going to play off the ball, but he's got decent positional size there. The athleticism is in place, and the shot making is in place. What are you looking for? An athlete who can shoot. Those guys have long careers barring injuries. He's going to have a long career barring injuries.
Tre Johnson headed to our nation's capital as we welcome back Matt Norlander. Matt, you and I watched him as well here in studio throughout the season. The SEC Freshman of the Year, Tre Johnson, headed to D.C., and he's going to have some new teammates for sure, but one of them being C.J. McCollum in the recent trade there. That perhaps could be good for him. Tre Johnson to the Wizards. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's good for him, and this is good for Washington. That front office has actually gotten a really good reputation. It has ties to Oklahoma City, and seems to be a franchise that in the next few years just may be able to break out of the vortex of suck that it's been stuck in for so many years. Tre Johnson, I think, is the second best prospect in this draft. I think the only one that has a better and higher ceiling is Cooper Flagg. So Adam, GP, and I are on of a similar mindset. I think I'm the highest of anyone on Tre Johnson. I think he's destined to average more than 25 points a game in his NBA career toward the end of his first, if not early part of his second contract. And he created rave reviews for his insane work ethic over the past few months. Now, there were some understandable questions about how he is as a teammate, just in terms of he can be very ball dominant, he can be demonstrative on the floor, but he is going to step into Washington's franchise, and yes, even as a 19-year-old, hold himself to the highest measure of accountability you could possibly imagine. That's based off of knowing Tre's game, knowing people around him, hearing the feedback that's come back over the past month plus of his lead up here to draft night. His representation was hoping that he could be there at 4 or 5, didn't think that he'd go to Philly, but 6 was viewed as the outright floor. It would have made 0 sense for him to fall past this regardless. So his spot was a little bit hard to peg down. But yeah, Tre Johnson, his scoring and shooting ability is outrageous. And he's the second best Texas talent other than Kevin Durant. And I think that he will provide a real turnaround for Washington and be a key factor and feature of that franchise for the next 5 to 8 years.
Yeah, one of Tre Johnson's favorite players to watch is Kevin Durant. We know Kevin Durant is headed to the Houston Rockets, so Tre won't get to see him in the Western Conference, but he'll get to play against him this season, his first season in Washington, D.C. Back here on CBS Sports HQ on the clock, presented by Jeep, with the 7th overall selection. New Orleans Pelicans select Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma. Point guard, was SEC All-Freshman last year, ranked 7th among D1 freshmen in points per game, assists, and steals this past season. And look, Pelicans need to hit on a draft pick. They need to get it going here. They really do, because they've had such high expectations with Zion, with Anthony Davis. Of course, AD is gone. He's in Dallas after multiple trades there. But now Jeremiah Fears headed to New Orleans. Back here in studio, Adam Finkelstein, Gary Parrish, Avery Johnson, and Matt Norlander along as well throughout the hour here on CBS Sports HQ. Our coverage presented by Jeep. As, look, we're at the 9 o'clock hour. We've had the first 6 selections. Number 7 is Jeremiah Fears. A lot of people like Jeremiah Fears. What is your grade for this pick?
Yeah, he had a chance to go as high as number 5 tonight. I'll be honest here. I'm skeptical. And let's be clear, Fears is one of the most polarizing prospects in this draft. If it goes well, this would be an A. But there is bust potential, in which case it would be an F. So I'm going to split the difference, and I'm going to give it a C and round up to a C+. When you take a guard like Fears, who has incredible burst, is a paint touch waiting to happen at this point in the draft, you are saying that you believe he has a chance to be your primary creator in New Orleans. I see Fears, the most likely outcome, being more like an instant offense type guy in your second unit. And I have major questions about how a guy who doesn't shoot it well from 3 and is a little ball dominant fits next to Zion Williamson. So I don't love the fit, and I think given the archetype, it's a really risky bet here at number 7.
The fit is a little risky because the obvious thing to do if you're trying to still build around Zion Williamson is just surround him with as many shooters as possible. So when you use the 7th pick on the draft on somebody who just shot 28% from 3 in his 1 season of college basketball, that hammers home everything Fink's saying. But take that, set it aside. On my board, this was the best player available. He's very difficult to stay in front of. Like, put the ball in his hands, you're going to have a hard time keeping him from getting those paint touches Fink talks about. But the question is that shot. Now, there's some other numbers, the free throw percentage, that suggest there is some touch there. But if he cannot develop into a real threat shooting the ball from that backcourt, then like Fink said, this will be too high to take him.
So if you're a Pelicans fan, which I don't know a ton of Pelicans fans, I think I know like one, are you excited about this selection, Gary?
I can get excited about it because I think.
What grade would you give it, Garrett?
Like, this is the part I would struggle with giving grades in a previous career. This is who I had best available prospect on my board at this moment. In fact, the first 7 players who have come off the board tonight are the first 7 players I had in my mock draft. Different order, but the same 7 players. So yeah, I think this is the best talent available. I can get excited, but I understand why Fink and others would be skeptical because the shooting concerns, they're real concerns.
What if you motivate him? What if he looks at you and goes, Adam Finkelstein gave me a C+ on draft night, and you know what happened with Tyrese Halliburton? Unfortunately got injured, but the whole poll about him being underrated, and he turned into, I'm not saying he's turned into a superstar, but he turned into a star this playoffs. Like, these guys will listen.
Yeah, zoom in on me for this part, okay? No one will be happier than me if I'm wrong here, okay? When you're the guy who does the rankings throughout high school and then you do the draft stuff too, you want to be wrong. You want these guys to prove you wrong. I want Jeremiah Fears to be great here. I'm just skeptical of the process of drafting a paint-touch point guard with a low finishing rate in addition to the shooting concerns who needs the ball in his hands. He's a high-volume guy who has not proven that he can acclimate to playing with less volume with the ball in his hands. Those are my concerns. I hope I'm wrong.
And another area of concern would be he only weighs 180 pounds. He's very thin, and if he doesn't get stronger, and most 18-year-olds do, but he's going to have to really fill out his body or else that becomes complicated for him on the defensive end of the court.
You're going to give Jeremiah Fears some motivation. Perhaps you're going to be fearing him in your comments. The Brooklyn Nets have 5 first-round picks. No team's ever made 5 picks in the first round of the NBA draft. Gary, we expect them to trade at least one of these, right?
You would think so. I don't expect something that has quite literally never happened in the history of the NBA draft to happen tonight. You don't want that many rookies on your roster. So, yes, I would assume some of these picks get moved at some point.
All right, so they have held on to the 8th selection, their first of potentially 5 picks, and they're taking Egor Demin out of BYU. Adam, I like Egor Demin. You can tell me why or why not I shouldn't like him. I would be excited if I were a Nets fan. He had a really good freshman year at BYU, one of 5 Division I and NBA players last season with 10 points per game, 5 assists, 50. He made a lot of 2s. So he's a quality shooter, but what do you say about this pick going to Brooklyn 8th overall? Well,
I'm surprised, first of all.
Okay.
I think he's the best passer in the draft, and he's got terrific size. Everybody says he's a big point guard. I don't necessarily buy into that. He's 6'9", and he guarded 4 men all season long for BYU. So to me, he's more of a facilitating forward than he is a big point guard. Now, to draft him this high means you believe in the upside and you believe he's a big point guard. So again, if all that hits and it goes according to plan, it's an A. I think that's unlikely. I see him more as a facilitating forward. You don't take a facilitating forward at this point in the draft, especially one who is a negative defender and a questionable shooter. So I'm going to go C+ again, and we'll see what happens. But and the other thing I would add to that is this. If Egor Demin was your guy, you could have traded back and got him somewhere else, I think.
Good point.
I would think that's probably true. This feels a little high for me, but I understand the intrigue. Like, almost regardless of the position, he's going to have good positional size. And like Fink said, he can really pass it. He sees things in a way that most prospects his age don't see them. But he also turned it over about 3 times a game. Yep. So he throws it away quite a bit. And he can take a shot and make a shot, but he only made 27% of his 3-point attempts in his 1 year at BYU. This is a total upside pick. You're not betting on what you're getting right now.
Right.
You're betting on what you can turn this into down the road.
You know what they're betting on? They're betting on their player development program, which is what they were known for before they brought in KD, Harden, and Kyrie Irving.
All right. Let's bring back Matt Norlander here to our coverage, CBS Sports senior writer who watched a lot of Egor's games at BYU. Your reaction to this pick is what, Matt?
Egor Demin is the first true curveball of the 2025 NBA draft. All guys who went 1 through 7 were expected to be taken in that range. Demin was viewed as someone who was going to go somewhere between 12 and 18, 12 and 20. This is a gutsy decision by General Manager Sean Marks here to do this. I agree with Adam in that you would think that if they thought they could get Demin, they would be able to trade back. Because right now, Would love to just peer into Toronto's draft room. Well, they were probably hoping Khaman Maluach from Duke would fall to them. If not, Phoenix definitely. Maluach has no business falling in the next 2 picks. Demin is a tall point guard, excellent passer. What's interesting about him getting selected so highly here is that if you just only watch the tape from Demin in the first month of the season last season at BYU, you would have seen a player who absolutely showed flashes of a guy willing to make that jump into the top 10 overall. But he did hit a wall, and he had a lot of inconsistency overall. But if you're going to buy into the size, I should say the height more than anything, and you're going to buy into the fact that he has the vision to become a true playmaker, a pass-first point guard, which is something of a diminishing feature on many an NBA team, then maybe this hits big. But this is a little bit of a gamble, no doubt, for Brooklyn. Has 5 picks. Other NBA franchises are expecting them to trade off a couple of these, but I wonder if the daring nature of this pick might foreshadow Brooklyn giving us another couple surprises with what they may or may not do with those picks. But here we go. We have a real curveball. We have a real wrinkle. And now there will inevitably be ripple effects over the next 4, 5, 6 picks as we end the lottery.
So our first true surprise, Adam, because you had Egor mocked at 17, who goes 9 spots higher. This is officially the first big surprise of the 2025 NBA draft.
I don't know that anybody had him mocked inside the top 10, but credit where credit is due. The BYU coaching staff told me last week they thought he would be off the board by 14. Now, everybody projects their guy to be drafted higher than expected, so I kind of give him like, yeah, I'm sure he will. Well, joke's on me.
Yeah, I don't think many people had him mocked in this range, but what was pretty much a consensus heading into this thing was that he had a pretty wide range, that people thought maybe could go in the top 10, but there were other franchises that might not even touch him in the top 20.
So you're saying they could have got him at 19?
I don't know that they could have got him at 19.
It's not impossible.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not impossible.
That's their next pick.
Yeah, I'm sure that will be asked to them, and they'll say, we don't believe that.
Sure.
We felt like this is our guy, and we had to get him here. As always, we'll never know for sure. But if I were betting, say, my 401k, I would have assumed I never do that. But I would, in this instance, somebody else will bet it for you. But at this point, I think they probably could have traded back and still got him. But how far, they don't know. If this is the guy they targeted, they just wanted to grab him.
Well, for now, the Brooklyn Nets have 4 remaining picks in the first round. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, presented by Jeep, there's only one. And Collin Murray-Boyles, the only lottery pick from South Carolina. How about that? He's the first top 15 NBA draft pick since 1974, and he is a lottery pick as he goes to the Toronto Raptors with the 9th overall selection, and one of 2 SEC players to average 16 points per game, 8 rebounds last season, the other being Johni Broome. Collin Murray-Boyles to the Toronto Raptors. And Adam, you've had a run here on C's, handing out C's. What are you handing out on this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go B here. I like Collin Murray-Boyles more than most as a prospect. The knock on him is that he is an undersized big, 6'6" without shoes on, and he's not a three-point shooter. But he's exceptionally long, 7-foot plus wingspan. He's very strong, so he plays functionally bigger than he is. He's a terrific rebounder. He's also an incredibly high processor of the game. Super, super smart, and then versatile defensively. I buy into all of that. What concerns me in Toronto is that's very similar to Scotty Barnes, just not quite as good. So again, I worry about, and I understand you don't pick for fit, but fit becomes important when you're trying to maximize an asset. And so that's what concerns me just a little bit about this. But let's be clear, I am a fan of CMB.
I think you make an important point there. Fit is especially important with a player like this because he's got to have the right people around him to work and the right coaching staff that believes in him to put him in a position to work, because he is an unusual top 10 pick. Like, how often are you ever going to describe a top 10 pick this way? Undersized big who can't shoot. He's so good at the other stuff, though. Incredible feel for the game. Like Fink said, he processes stuff really well. Just evaluators fell in love with the other stuff that he brings to the table. Not comparing him to Draymond Green, but a lot of people talk about him, the same way they talk about Draymond Green. Flawed player, undersized for where he is on the court, but he just knows how to get things done. Collin Murray-Boyles has a lot of those same characteristics.
Let's welcome back Avery Johnson, who joins us from Dallas, where they selected Cooper Flagg with the first overall selection. And the Toronto Raptors go with Collin Murray-Boyles out of South Carolina. What do you think of this pick, Avery?
I give this pick a C-. I'm with the guys. I really don't necessarily like the fit here. When you look at the Raptors, they need scoring. They need outside shooting. I don't believe that they needed an undersized center with this roster as currently constructed. So again, this kid, he's got a high motor. He'll rebound the basketball, but his outside shot is very questionable. He's an undersized big. Not really sure what Toronto's doing here. And I would be curious, especially from Adam's standpoint, if he wasn't the pick, who would Adam would have taken in this spot? But I'm happy for the young man, but I'm not necessarily crazy about this pick.
Who would you have taken? Jakucionis?
Khaman Maluach.
Okay.
I don't know that Jakob Poeltl's only got a year on his contract, I believe. This is Masai Ujiri's a GM, a decision maker who covets length and athleticism. They don't have a lot of it. Maluach is 7'2" with a 7'6" wingspan. You get your center of the future. That would have been my pick.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ, On the Clock, presented by Jeep. 3 Duke players going in the top 10. Cooper Flagg at 1. Kon Knueppel going 4th overall to the Charlotte Hornets. And Khaman Maluach, 10th overall to the Phoenix Suns. That was part of the trade for Kevin Durant. As you take a look at 3 college teammates in the top 10 of the same draft, the modern draft era, as Duke has done this before, 2019, and now again here in 2025. Khaman Maluach, the big man, is headed to the Phoenix Suns. Adam, your grade for this? What do you think?
Yeah, we're going A-. I like.
Oh, A-.
Yeah,
right.
I'm a big believer in Maluach. I think he's got a long future in the league. I think he's got a high floor. He's 7'2" with a 7'6" wingspan. He is an extreme lob threat. In fact, I think that's the thing he does best of all right now. But he's also exceptionally mobile for his size. Not just running the floor from end to end, but also moving laterally. So for a guy who's so huge, he's not just a drop coverage pick and roll defender. Then he has shot blocking potential. I think it's really easy to say he's a big-time shot blocker because of his measurements. He's not that just yet, but he should be in time. Phoenix doesn't have anybody in their front court. It's a barren land out there. So they've got an opportunity for him to come in, play immediate minutes, play through some mistakes. I think he's got a high floor. He's going to be a very good NBA player for a long time. This is good value.
All right, let's bring back Avery Johnson, who joins us from Dallas. And Khaman Maluach not headed out of the Houston Rockets. He's headed to the Phoenix Suns. What do you think of this pick here?
I'm calling my nephew Devin Booker, and I'm going to say, hey, job well done for you and the Phoenix Suns. This is an A. I agree with Adam here. The Phoenix Suns never have replaced DeAndre Ayton, when they went to the NBA Finals. I know he got criticized a lot when his motor was inconsistent, but Maluach is going to be great. He'll play above the rim. You know what I love about this young man is he is a switchable big. Pick and rolls, we know it's a pick and roll jamboree buffet in the NBA. You got to have big men that can give their defense added versatility, and not just in some straight drop or zone drop is what we call it, but he's got to be able to switch. He's got to be able to trap. This young man has a terrific footwork for his size. So this is a win for the Phoenix Suns with this draft pick.
By the way, they got to fix the hat thing.
They do.
I mean, we all know, he knows, the teams know. Like, why are you putting on a Houston Rockets hat?
This is a point
every year.
Make every year. I understand it's complicated and there's processes.
Yes.
But there has to be a better way to do this.
Can we get a process done before? I mean, the trade was done 3 days ago.
It's a television show. There has to be a better way to do the television show.
Cedric Coward, Division III to a lottery pick. All right, well, look, we said we were surprised with Collin Murray-Boyles. We said we were surprised with Jeremiah Fears a bit. And how about Egor Demin, a surprise? Cedric Coward to the Portland Trailblazers. Your draft grade is what, Adam?
Well, they're trading him to the Grizzlies.
Yes.
So I would like to know more about the trade before I assess this. I will say this. I was told going into the draft that Carter Bryant was atop the Blazers board. And so if they are moving this pick, it is presumably because they think they can move down and draft Carter Bryant. So although I'm going to reserve the right to find out the deal, the specifics of this deal, I think on process alone, that strategy from Portland would be an A. And as far as Memphis, again, you have to know what they're giving up. But GP, you know this team better than I do. How's he going to fit there?
He will fit great. I know that they liked him. They brought him in for a workout and had prioritized him. It seems obvious they didn't think he was going to fall to 16. They needed to go up and get him. Reportedly, they have sent to Portland the 16th pick in this draft, a first rounder in 2028, and 2 future second rounders. Now, they have done a nice job in Memphis of assembling picks. You know, they got 4 first rounders in the Desmond Bane deal. So they were always building up to make a move if they needed to. This is a young man who helped himself, I think, probably better than literally any other prospect throughout the pre-draft process. He played just a handful of games at Washington State and was set to transfer to Duke. 2 months ago, he was not expected to even remain in this draft, much less be picked 11th. But here we are. It's an amazing story.
All right, so Cedric Coward headed to the Memphis Grizzlies, and we're headed Matt Norlander's way, who wrote a fantastic feature about him on CBSSports.com. And look, this is a surprise. He's going 11th, now headed to Memphis.
Well, having written a feature on Cedric Coward, obviously I've been in close contact with him, his family, and his camp. And earlier on Wednesday, it was a message to me that, you know, going as early as number 11 was on the table, and they did not think there was any chance he was going to slip past number 16. Memphis was one of the preferred destinations, and interestingly enough, Portland was not, even though he played at nearby Washington State and Eastern Washington. Cedric Coward is the best story in the 2025 NBA draft, and he has walked a path and done something that's never happened in the history of the NBA. He had 2 Division III offers. Division III, not Division I. He had 2 Division III offers. He started at a terrible Division III team, Willamette, for a year. He played at Eastern Washington for 2 years. He transferred to Washington State, turning down hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in NIL money at high major schools to keep on with his coaching staff, which got the Washington State job. Then he rips up his shoulder 6 games into last season. He has not played organized basketball in more than 7 months, and yet he has turned this into a top 11 draft pick. This is incredible. It speaks to his outstanding character. Cedric Coward, guys, I've mentioned this on HQ earlier this week. I've interviewed close to, I think, 400 college basketball players in some shape or form over the past 15 plus years. Cedric Coward is one of the 5 best interviews I have ever done. It is so easy to see how a franchise would fall in love with him from a character perspective, let alone his 7'2.5" wingspan on a near 6'6" frame. Some of the efficiency numbers you dive in, although he didn't play a lot of high-end competition, they're outrageously good. He was one of the most efficient players off the bench in his first year of Division I. So he will be an amazing fit in Memphis. And I'm just telling you, he is ready to go. Having talked to him leading into this process, he's got a Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant type of mindset. Says, when I get on the court, I want to kill you. I'm trying to take your head off, period. That's all it is. That quote's in that feature at CBSSports.com. He is an incredible, amazing story, and really proof, last thing from me here, really proof that you can get to the NBA from anywhere. And his closest comp in terms of his rise is Jalen Williams, who I profiled 3 years ago, who went from Santa Clara to a maybe NBA pick to being a lottery pick at Oklahoma City. And now Coward's done it. He's gone even higher in the lottery, and he is considered a potential diamond in the rough here. And he could be the type of player that, even being picked at 11, proves to be picked too low.
Yeah, he's got Olympic ties as well, Matt. I mean, this is a fantastic story. We always like to see these gems, Gary, and you know Memphis real well. You know the Grizzlies. It's exciting to see these stories where you go from nowhere to somewhere and being a first-round pick. But at the end of the day, it's about results. And so when you look at what type of player they're getting, there's a lot of unknown. What do you know that you can go, this is going to be a good selection here for Memphis?
Well, he just checks all of the physical boxes that you would want somebody to check. like good positional size, great body, great frame, great athleticism, and then he can make the shot as well. If you're skeptical of him, and I'm not, but if you are, I mean, we haven't really seen him play against high major competition. Right. He didn't really play much at Washington State at all. So he is going to be, the second he steps in that facility, surrounded by basketball players, unlike anything he's ever seen. But throughout the pre-draft process, the physical tools were undeniable. And like Norlander said, everybody who talks to this young man, spends time with him, walks away impressed. And I can just tell you, having lived in Memphis and being a part of that organization, they really value that stuff. Like they don't just draft Jaren Jackson Jr. because they think he's an amazing, versatile big. They really liked everything about the makeup of Jaren Jackson Jr. and Cedric Coward checks a lot of those boxes.
Well, he was about to go to Duke, and he stays and keeps his name in the draft here. I mean, that speaks volumes already as it is for him that he was going to go to Duke. Instead, he goes to the NBA because they don't just let anybody walk into Duke and play basketball there.
No, and the wing was the priority position at Duke this offseason, so they got him done really early. But then even before the Combine, I was actually told that while he made it public following the Combine that he let Duke know a week before because some of his very early, the initial NBA visits had gone so well, he knew, he said, hey, I got to stay in this draft. And let me make this point as well about Memphis. They struck gold in last year's draft with Jalen Wells, so they moved Desmond Bane out. And now with Coward and Wells, the hope is that those are your wings long-term. Coward's 23 years old.
That's right.
So he's 5 years older than a lot of these freshmen. So this is a pick that needs a somewhat immediate return because they want to compete right now. GP, you can speak to this better than I can, but you tweeted they're not trading Ja Morant, they're not trading Jaren Jackson, they're trying to win. And so Coward, if he can contribute at a low salary number associated with this pick, then it makes sense.
Yeah, one of the big misconceptions when the Grizzlies traded Desmond Bane, on a national level at least, was that this might be the first step towards moving Jaren Jackson or Ja Morant. They're not trying to rebuild, they're trying to compete in the West, and they hope this player can help them do that.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ, On the Clock, presented by Jeep. There's only one. The Chicago Bulls selecting the first international prospect off the board, Noa Essengue. And if you remember last year, they took an international prospect in Matas Uzelis. And Adam, a grade here for the Chicago Bulls, 12th overall, getting the Frenchman, Noa Essengue.
Yeah, it's a B. I mean, this is an upside swing, which at this point in the draft is a little more justifiable than it was in the mid-lottery, I think. So what you have in Essengue is one of the youngest players in the draft. He's 6'10" with a 7'1" wingspan. He's also one of the best athletes in the draft, not just in terms of his leaping ability, but in terms of his court coverage. Now, he was playing professionally in Germany, and although he's still got to refine his game and build up his body, he was impactful at a high level of international play. He's also physical, even though he's got to get stronger. Has a terrific free throw rate. So there's a lot of things to be encouraged about, although he still does have to refine his game. I think for the Bulls, like I said, the upside swing makes some sense.
And that's what it is. You're betting on what he can be 3 years from now, not what he is yesterday or today. He's only 18 years old. He's a fluid athlete. He can drive it, but like so many of these young guys, the swing skill is the shot. He's not a great shooter. He's not a good shooter, but he has gotten better in that area. And so the hope is when you select an 18-year-old at this point in the draft, that improvement continues to show itself as he gets into his NBA career.
On talent at this spot, I give it an A- because I thought Derik Queen was a top 10, maybe a top 8 prospect in this class. The people who criticize Derik Queen will talk about the conditioning and the athletic concerns that go along with it, and you can extend that to the defensive end of the floor as well. They will also talk about the fact that he's an inconsistent shooter. What I will tell you is he has arguably the best hands in the draft. He's exceptionally skilled at his size, and he can play make in the front court, both by putting the ball on the floor and as a passer. Now, what concerns me here is the fit, because you've got Fears, who we talked about, ball dominant, not a consistent shooter. You've got Williamson, ball dominant, not a consistent shooter. And I hate to state the obvious here, but Troy Weaver, who in Detroit built a team where shooting was the major concern, there are starting to be some similar concerns here, unless Zion may not be as much of a building block as you're saying.
And that's the thing. Obviously, he's had off-court issues that have brought his future into question,
Sure.
Particularly in New Orleans. So, in theory, if you're trying to build around Zion Williamson, I would like to add shooters.
Yes,
More so than players like they've added tonight, but it is possible their long-term plans don't include Zion Williamson. Either way, this is one where I can struggle with, if I'm being honest, because I do think there's a best player available aspect to this where you just take him no matter what. But like Fink said, in this particular situation, the fit I don't think is perfect.
Well, he had a game winner, the buzzer beater in the NCAA tournament against Colorado State. It was incredible. Did he get it off in time? Yeah, he did. Was there a foul? There was all that whatever controversy.
Well, he traveled, but don't let that ruin the
Right, exactly. Well, well, letter of the law. I remember Matt. We brought Matt on, and what was it a travel, Matt? Now he's traveling to New Orleans?
I reached out. I mean, if we're going to go literally back to March, I reached out to 2 officiating sources, and in that moment, they told me, yes, it was a travel. Yeah. Derik Queen traveled, but whatever. He is now going to go to the Pelicans. Here's what you need to know about why this happened. New Orleans. I checked in with Queen's camp earlier today. New Orleans was showing genuine interest at number 7, but they knew they were not going to be able to justify the pick that high. Atlanta was the only team between number 6 and number 15 that Derik Queen did not work out for. This is Atlanta's pick. It's getting shipped to New Orleans. The Pelicans franchise was absolutely enamored with Derik Queen. Atlanta was never going to draft Queen. They're going to move back. They've got a lot of guys in that range now in the early 20s that they're targeting, and they're going to get 2 picks next year. By the way, I had a source tell me right before we went live here on HQ. So Atlanta gets 2 bonus picks as a result of trading out of this. Queen overall, he had mixed reviews across the past 4 weeks as he went through team workouts. Some teams want to see him still continue to shed more weight, put on more muscle. Obviously, his skill set, his passing, his shooting ability is undeniable. Derik Queen is also the player that his former coach, Kevin Willard, went viral for when he told me last season that if he was European and white, he'd be in the conversation to be number 1 in the draft. He's not that, but he is a lottery pick all the same. And I will say this, having gotten to know Derik Queen a bit, he is someone who certainly lights up a room, really fun personality, very smart on the floor. Kevin Willard told me that he was the one player more than any other. Remember, he's a freshman that he could count on the most to never have to give the instructions to twice. He knew what everyone's assignment was on the floor at any given time at both ends of the floor here. So I understand the pick from New Orleans. It was trending this way. I think there were other teams right behind this pick that were ready to pull the trigger on Queen, and instead New Orleans made its move, and it gets this guy.
Matt, I'm curious your take on this, because we have another situation where a kid's got to wear another hat that he's not going to play for. Like, doesn't that steal the moment? That you're not going to Atlanta, you're going to New Orleans. What is taking so long to get this, like, changed?
It's patently ridiculous. This goes back to, I think that it's probably been a thing since the beginning that they did the draft. But Scottie Pippen did this with the Bulls way back in the day when he was Scott Pippen when he got drafted. It seems like it should be a simple fix. I know for official purposes they have to process the trade and all that, but when everyone knows where he's going to go. Have him on draft night, get photographed in the actual hat to the team that he's going to be playing Summer League with. But these are small-time problems. Ultimately, Derik Queen's going to be thrilled that he was able to turn in a one-and-done season and now go down to New Orleans and hopefully be part of a franchise that can start to get things going back the way that they were hoping it would go, 2-3 years ago. He does have the potential. We'll see if he can really put it all together. His skill set does suggest at least a chance at being one of the 6 or 7 most impactful players if it all comes together. There's no denying just how crafty, high IQ he is as a point forward effectively on the floor.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ on the clock, presented by Jeep. 14th overall selection belongs to the San Antonio Spurs. They already made 1 selection in this draft. They took Dylan Harper at 2. Now they're taking Carter Bryant, 6'7", 215-pound power forward out of Arizona. His head coach at Arizona, Tommy Lloyd, said, quote, "The one thing about Carter is he checks 2 boxes that are really hard to check: elite talent, elite character." And the pick is in for San Antonio. They take Carter Bryant, who did not wear a shirt underneath his suit, and good for him. He, is young, looks good. If you got to flaunt it, what grade are you flaunting here?
I'm flaunting an A. I love what San Antonio is doing in this process. I could not be more enthusiastic about a guy who averaged 6 points and 4 rebounds per game. 6'7", high-level athlete, multi-positional defender, and I mean that very literally. Sometimes Arizona had him guarding opposing point guards, and he shot 45% on open catch and shoot threes last year. So he fits that 3-and-D archetype that is not only one of the most coveted in the NBA, but is also critical to building some much needed floor spacing around not only Wemby, but De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Harper, and of course Steph Castle as well. They needed shooting, and they got it with this pick.
Smart franchise does something smart. Surprise, surprise. I love this. You've got your stars there. Victor Wembanyama is there. De'Aaron Fox is there. You've got the reigning Rookie of the Year. Now, how do you take that next step? Surround them with people who can help you win playoff basketball games. And if you watch this postseason, these 3-and-D wings are invaluable. You can't have too many of them. And Carter Bryant at this point in the draft quite clearly projects as the best 3-and-D prospect available. I love this pick. I had him in the top 10 of my mock draft.
Me too.
If I can get him at 14, I'm thrilled.
Wow. All right, let's go out to our resident Spur. One of the greats in San Antonio Spurs basketball history, led them to a title in 1999, hit the game-winning shot. Carter Bryant, Avery, he came in with a suit jacket with no shirt underneath. Give me the grade on his fit and then how he actually fits there in San Antonio.
Well, guys, I'm still waiting for my name to be called in the 1988 draft. I'm still waiting, but I want to come back as Carter Bryant, man. As Adam said, you know, average 6 points a game. But again, the Spurs see something here, and I think it's primarily with that catch and shoot ability. When you look at guys, you know, like Branham and Devin Vassell, you know, Keldon Johnson, look at the wings on this roster. You know, a lot of these guys have underperformed in a lot of ways. So we'll see if Carter Bryant can come in and if he can find his way into this rotation, or is he going to be stuck down in the G League in Austin for the entire season. But again, I know they see huge upside because statistically he's not going to blow anybody out of the water, but he's got good size, you know, pretty good defender. But I think it's that catch and shoot ability, especially when you surround him with guys like, you know, De'Aaron Fox, Castle, you know, that can really, you know, now Dylan Harper, that can break down the defense. You need guys that can make shots.
Well, sometimes it doesn't matter if you're drafted or not. Avery Johnson undrafted, and he went from look, you went from a zero to a hero. So look, I mean, you're an NBA champion. No one can take that away from you. And the Spurs have one fun team to watch as they get Carter Bryant here with the latest selection in the NBA draft. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, on the clock on HQ. The Oklahoma City Thunder parading around town on Tuesday. Now they're going to parade a new first-round pick here in Thomas Sorber out of Georgetown. Last season ranked 3rd among Division I freshmen with 8 double-doubles, despite sitting out Georgetown's last 9 games due to a foot injury. 6'10", 255 pounds, and he is joining the defending NBA champions. And Adam, you and I were talking about guys they need to replace some of the players on the roster, and this is exactly a guy that fits that mold in Thomas Sorber.
Well, the mold is 3 years from now because they really don't have any rotation minutes up for grabs. But when you talk about extending out this championship window, it comes down to retaining their 3 key players in SGA, J-Dub, and Chet. And that means the supporting cast is going to have to turn over. If you can get contributing players on rookie contracts, not necessarily in their first year, but on that initial contract in year 3 or 4, then you've got a chance to stay under the second apron, which is key to having longevity. Sorber, I don't expect him to make a big impact next year, but he's tremendously long. He's got magnetic hands, and his rate of improvement in recent years has been absolutely off the charts. If he can keep that up, he'll be able to contribute in a year or two, and that ultimately is what OKC is looking for.
That's exactly right. I've heard a lot of people look at OKC's roster and say, hey, what do they even need? Nothing now, but eventually, like Fink has explained, because of that second apron, you are not going to be able to pay all of your role players. You're going to pay the MVP, you're going to pay Chet, you're going to pay Jalen, but after that, you're going to have a rotating cast of characters. Out with the old, in with the new. You're not drafting Thomas Sorber so he can help you win anything next year. You're drafting him so that he can help you maintain a championship level of success when you can't pay the other guys that the second apron prevents you from paying.
If it wasn't Sorber, who would you have selected?
Well, someone like Liam McNeely still on the board here. I was surprised that Joan Beringer isn't in play here because he's an extreme athlete, rim runner, shot blocker, lob threat. Those would have been players that would have been on my board. Walter Clayton for the shooting, the floor spacing. I think those are 3 of the guys that I have at top of my list that are still available right now.
All right, let's go back out to Avery Johnson, who is in Dallas, where they selected Cooper Flagg with the first overall selection. And the reigning champions here, the Oklahoma City Thunder, taking the big man out of Georgetown. What's your reaction, Avery?
I agree with the guys. This is a long-term play because, when you look at Sorber, he should be focusing on not J-Dub, but Jalen Williams out of Arkansas because he's like the 10th or 11th man. He's trying to get more time. He was actually pretty hilarious at the Oklahoma City Thunder parade, even though he used some bad language. But again, this is a long-term play. When Hartenstein and those guys, you got to make a decision on whether you got to give those guys supermax contracts or if Chet Holmgren becomes, defensive player of the year, and that takes him to another level in terms of what type of contract that he can be offered in the future. You got to have your stockpile ready to go. So this is a 2 to 3 year play with a guy that they hope to develop, especially with this type of size.
All right. Well, he says he's going to come in and do whatever is asked of him in Oklahoma City. So, look, that's what they need. They're just coming off an NBA championship. Thomas Sorber headed to Oklahoma City. All right, well, we have our pick in. It is young Hansen out of China, 7'2", 250 pounds, heading to the Portland Trail Blazers. What do we need to know about this young man?
Well, you need to know that he's 19 years old. He averaged 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists per game, along with 3 blocks in the Chinese CBA. But this is higher than anyone projected. I mean, this is a swing of epic proportions. And what's slightly perplexing about this is it comes on the heels of drafting Donovan Clingan a year ago. Now, listen, I understand that Robert Williams and DeAndre Ayton are not in the long-term plans for Portland, but if you're Donovan Clingan and you're sitting at home right now, you got to be thinking, what just happened?
Right. Yeah. And
what just happened?
This is a surprise. I don't think you can find a mock draft that would have had this prospect in the top 20. Most don't even have him in the first round. He's 7 foot. He's 250. He's huge. And he's more of a traditional post player, crafty around the rim, all of that stuff. But one of the problems with being this big is that his feet don't move that well. And there are real concerns around among NBA evaluators who just don't know if you're going to be able to keep him on the court because he does not move the way you want NBA players, even front court players, to move in this era of basketball.
And I don't think this is a scenario where you can talk about those guys playing together. Neither one is especially mobile. This is we've had some surprises tonight. This is the biggest surprise, bar none, that we've had so far tonight.
Are you ready to hand out a failing grade?
No.
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 You don't want to?
No. Mike Schmitz knows more about this than I do. I will say this. I'll go C, just because stay consistent with the philosophy of if it hits, it's going to be an A and they're going to be smarter than anyone. But if it doesn't hit, everybody's going to look at this and say, Kasparas was on the board, Liam McNeely was on the board, Walter Clayton was on the board, and Beringer was on the board. And you just took Clingan last year.
Matt Norlander, makes sense of this for us. This is quite a surprise here for the Portland Trail Blazers. What do you got?
Okay, yeah, a couple things here. One, I'm getting indications that a player that Adam just mentioned, Joan Beringer, is due to be selected next here. That was the foreign-born player that was expected to be next in line, not here. And just hearing from a league source here, like Portland, we'll see what develops here. I know they had trouble bringing some players in this range because, fair or not, this is just the opinion shared with me by some league sources and on the agency side as well. There's a lot of questions about the direction Portland is in, the state it is in right now. I know a few players in the representation were not overly eager to have their players drafted into Portland. Maybe these things are all tied and connected, but yes, if I tell you what, if Egor Demin going to Brooklyn was a 6.8 on the shocking scale out of 10. This registers around a 9.5 overall. I can tell you, just because I got a couple texts here on my phone, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm the most absolutely connected NBA insider, very, very far from it, but I've got a few connections, and I can guarantee you that people around the league are shaking their heads and texting each other right now going, what on earth is Portland doing?
What on earth is Portland doing? Yeah, I'd have to echo that sentiment.
Well, the one thing I would add to that is that, Mike understands what the reaction to this pick is going to be. They understand, folks, right now around.
They know more than we do. Let's be clear. Yeah.
They understand what the reaction is.
Do they though? Sometimes, because sometimes I could redraft. Sometimes you and I, all three of us, could redraft the draft, and we would look smarter than some of these GMs. Nico Harrison just traded away Luka Doncic, so it's not out of the question.
Ask me about that.
I know, but my point is sometimes GMs and front offices overthink these things, and sometimes that's why we as fans get so excited and so invested. We go, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Because there are these situations right here where we go, what is this guy doing?
To your point, there have definitely been examples of people running NBA franchises who do not know what they're doing. My only point is that when you are Portland and you are going to do this, you know exactly what everybody's going to say the moment you do it, that it's stupid or nonsensical or a big stretch. That means you have to have real belief in what you're doing to do it. You got to really believe in what you're doing to do this, and I give them credit for that. Now we'll see where it goes.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ, on the clock, presented by Jeep. There's only one. Oh, how about this? We've got some video. Joan Beringer. Yes, I know French. Beringer, big baller. He led the Adriatic League in blocks per game last season. I'm kind of excited about this, Adam Finkelstein. Are you excited about this? Joan Beringer heading to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So you got Rudy Gobert and Beringer.
Yeah, I am excited about it. He's 6'11" without shoes on, so for all intents and purposes, he is a 7-footer. He's got a better than 7'4" wingspan, and as you just saw in those highlights, he is an extreme athlete. Now, Rudy Gobert is not getting any younger, but he's been arguably a generational type defensive talent. And now Beringer gets to learn under him and then presumably have the opportunity to take over a few years down the road. I think this is a great succession plan, if you will, for the Timberwolves at the center spot.
As is the case with a lot of young players, it's an upside play. He's only been playing basketball for about 3 or 4 years. So needless to say, he's very raw relative to a more well-rounded prospect, but the athleticism is there. He projects as somebody who could be a versatile defender down the road. But you saw the video. He's thin. He's going to have to add weight, get stronger, and develop some skills, because maybe once upon a time being 7 foot and athletic could get you by in the NBA, but it's harder now than it's ever been.
Avery, what do you think here about this selection from the Minnesota Timberwolves, Joan Beringer?
Yeah, I like this pick. When you look at the NBA right now, especially, it's a threes league and a layup league. On average, it's not really a mid-range league, even though Shai Gilgeous-Alexander loved the mid-range. So with all the analytics and advanced analytics and stats, you need shot blockers and rim protectors to be able to protect your team against your opponents in terms of points in the paint. Beringer, this is what he does. He can protect the rim. He's a shot blocker. If you talk about a succession plan, Rudy Gobert, who knows how long he has. He's had a great run with all of his defensive players of the year. And maybe this kid could develop into a little bit more of a refined offensive player down the road so that you don't have to sub him out, especially in terms of your offense-defense substitutions. So, again, this is a kid that Timberwolves are going to develop. And I think give him 2 or 3 years, he could potentially be a solid NBA player.
All right, Avery Johnson there in Dallas, where it was Flagg Day. It continues to be Flagg Day. As we take a look at the last 5 selections, Adam Finkelstein, certainly the surprise there, Yang Hansen from China, the 7-footer. But your overall thoughts here on these last 5 selections in the draft, where these guys have landed?
Well, you can see that size is at a premium, and They're trying to find big bodies in the lane. What's interesting about this draft is that there's been different kinds of big guys. So you've got Beringer and Maluach, guys who are the rim running shot blockers. You've got guys who are like Queen, who are highly skilled. Danny Wolf, a name we haven't called, is another big name like that, big man like that. And then you've got Hansen, who's I think a skilled type of big, and people are saying, I'm getting texts right now and saying, well, if he hits, he's going to be a Gasol brother. Who knows if he's going to hit? But that's is he a Jokic type? Is he a Gasol type? Only time will tell. But it's different kinds of big men, and you can see size still matters in this league.
Yeah, to me, the pick that stands out there is Carter Bryant going to San Antonio. Yep. Like I mentioned, they've got the star pieces theoretically in place, whether that's Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama. Now you just want to find perfect role players to surround them with, and Carter Bryant has a chance to be one of the best role players in the NBA in time.
The 18th pick has been moved. The Washington Wizards trading that pick to the Utah Jazz, and the Utah Jazz going to get Walter Clayton Jr. How about this? National champ, Final Four most outstanding player. He was supremely clutch for the Gators, leading them to a national championship. How do you feel about where he went, and a grade for this pick, Adam Finkelstein?
A-. GP, I tried to tell people.
You did.
I tried to tell people Walter Clayton was going to get picked this high.
You told me.
And let's be clear, it's not because of his heroics that led Florida to a national championship.
He was clutch.
It is because he is an elite shooter of the basketball, and when you were talking about perimeter role players in the NBA, that is the single most important criteria. Now, the critics will say, he doesn't defend. Well, he's got the body type to defend, and the requisite defensively is going to be much higher in the NBA than it was at Florida. If you're Todd Golden, you put this guy on the floor because of what he does offensively, and you ask him to be good enough defensively. In the NBA, you say, hey, you better guard, otherwise you're not getting on the court. He is going to be a good NBA player. Ace Bailey, Walter Clayton, I think Utah's doing a great job.
He's a special shot maker. Fink had this right. He's been on him longer than most, even before the historically great run through the NCAA tournament. I am concerned about the size. He is little. We've been talking about how big every position on the court has gotten, and he's closer to 6'2", but he does have a football background.
Yes.
So he's got some stuff to him that can allow him to get in there and play a little bigger than he actually is. I'm intrigued by it. I don't know if this is what I would have done in the top 20 with Walter Clayton Jr., but I recognize the shot-making ability, and I won't be surprised to see him making shots in this league for a long time.
Well, something has to certainly value leadership and, as you said, shot-making ability. You want to draft winners. And look, the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Utah Jazz, they just got a winner in Walter Clayton Jr. Matt, what are your thoughts here on this pick? Because we sat here, we praised Walter Clayton Jr. throughout the tournament, leading to a national champion, and again, now going to the Utah Jazz.
Yeah, let's just get into the why of this pick and then get into the details of how this is going to work. You reach out to sources, you try and gather intel, you hope most of it is close to accurate. This is the one that has been bang on. Walter Clayton Jr. has seen a jump in the past 4, 5, 6 days. That's even evidenced all the more. We told you before the draft started tonight that he would be moving into the top 20, and then Utah willing to trade to get him. Really amazing story, and I do think that Clayton, being a top 3 player in college basketball last season and seeing some recent players that were 3-4 year players but were high-end first team, second team All-American level players having success in the NBA also benefited Clayton, Jalen Brunson being one of the most foremost examples of that. You know what Utah has right now? Utah has Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr. That also means that Utah drafted the 2 best tough shot makers in the entire draft. They got guys who can fill it up and proved it time and time and time again. You dive into the synergy numbers, the advanced analytics, it bears out very cleanly and very alarmingly just how good these 2 players are when they are forced with taking NBA level kind of shots. So Clayton had some real emotion on his face. I love to see that. He has more than earned this. Really an incredible journey. He's in Brooklyn tonight. You know, it wasn't that long ago when, just a quick story here, when he was playing at Iona. I actually did a feature on Rick Pitino before he got the St. John's job about what the future of Pitino might be. Will he stay at Iona? Will he get a high major offer? We know how that part went. But when I was interviewing Rick Pitino in his office, at one point, Walter Clayton Jr. came in just to talk for a few minutes, and he had left the room, and Pitino talked to me. He goes, "Do you think he can play at a high major level?" And Rick Pitino knows this, but he wanted my opinion real quick. And I said, "Yeah, I actually do think he can." And Pitino basically said, "No, he absolutely can, and he's going to be a star if he chooses to go to that next level." Look what he did when he went to Florida. Pitino kind of knows what he's talking about, and not that far away from Iona's campus here on Wednesday night, he turns himself into a top 20 pick. Another really, really cool story in the 2025 NBA draft.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ, on the clock, presented by Jeep. A third Frenchman off the board in Nolan Traore. He played in France's top league last season. 11 points per game, team high 5 assists in their season last year. And he is headed to the Brooklyn Nets. Back here in studio, Adam Finkelstein, Gary Parrish alongside, as well as Matt Norlander and Avery Johnson, who is on the road in Dallas for us. I'm a little confused here with this pick. Are you, or what grade are you giving here? This is a little odd to me. I'm confused why Jakucionis is still on the board.
Yeah, I am too, and I'm very interested to see what kind of feedback we get from this, whether there's something in the medical. I don't think there would have been anything in the background, but what exactly is going on. Now, on its own, I think Traore at this spot is good value. Traore came into this draft cycle viewed as a potential top 5 pick in this draft. Tremendous speed, good positional size, creativity as a ball handler, just a ton of playmaking ability. One of the questions was the shooting, and he made significant strides with the shooting throughout the course of his season this year. I actually posed the question about a month ago, are we sure Traore is that much worse than Jeremiah Fears? I think that's a relevant discussion. So I like the value here, but I too am surprised, especially if they're drafting a point guard, that Jakucionis was not in the mix.
Yeah, with Jakucionis, it reminds me a little bit of last year when Cal Filipowski started sliding relative to where most of us
the year before
believed. And there is usually an explanation for this stuff. With Cam Whitmore, if I remember correctly, it was some injury concerns, medical stuff. With Filipowski, it was personal stuff. But all of this typically comes out the night of the draft or by the next morning. We should have an explanation for Jakucionis at some point.
All right, give me a draft grade for Traore here.
Oh, it's a B.
Okay.
Yeah, very solid.
All right.
Very solid.
All right, do you like what the Nets have done with their first 2 picks, Egor Demin and Nolan Traore here at 19? You feel like they got better value?
Interesting. I will say this. I might have done it a little bit differently, but I have great confidence. There's always variables that we don't know, whether it's the intel, the medical, or an understanding of what you have in-house. And the Nets player development program was renowned. It was the reason why their rebuild was accelerated before they drafted before they acquired Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and then obviously that didn't go well. But if they think they can develop Demin's shooting, if they think they can develop Traore's shooting, now you've got ball handlers and playmakers all over the floor. Let me also make this point. Taking Traore is an indication that they may not think Egor Demin is a point guard either.
That's right, but you take 2 teenagers that both are a ways to being reputable NBA players, but the stuff you're looking for, like the natural ability. With Demin, it's the incredible positional size. With Traore, it's, you know, he's real shifty with the ball. He's hard to guard a little bit. You know, Fink mentioned Jeremiah Fears, hard to guard a little bit like Fears is hard to guard. So you've got some interesting stuff to work with, but you've got to develop, and then that's probably, you know, a couple years away at least.
What do you think about the Nets? They have 3 more picks here. Did they make all 3 of those remaining selections?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think anybody had anticipated them drafting the way they did tonight. I don't think anyone anticipated them keeping all 5. What I would say to you is that I think it depends who is on the board.
Okay. Are you feeling pretty good right now if you're the Brooklyn Nets with these 2 picks? Let's say you're a fan of the Brooklyn Nets.
I always phrase it this way.
Yeah, let me hear this.
It's not what I would have done, but that doesn't mean it won't work out. Even Sam Presti, who is widely regarded as the best front office member in American sports, misses on draft picks sometimes. Draft analysts do as well.
Do you know what that is, though? That's father speak. That's when you look at your kid and you go, you know what, little Jimmy, That's not what I would have done in that situation. I think you had another choice.
I phrase it somewhat differently.
Well, yes. You know, sometimes we do. But there was a thing called the power to choose. We have a book that we have called Power to Choose. Is that what you would have? Is that the decision you would have made there in that spot, little Jimmy?
Yeah, that's the conversation you have with your children in the early stages. Eventually, you get to the point of, what are you doing?
Yes. What in the name? Get in the house right now.
So it changes tone as time goes by.
All right, well, we're going to see what the Brooklyn Nets are going to do here with their next 3 picks. The next pick off the board, the Miami Heat. Guess who they take, Adam Finkelstein? Kasparas Jakucionis. There you go. You had him, I mean, you had him mocked as high as, what, 9?
Yeah,
top 10?
Yeah, top. Now, I understand the concerns because he's a guy who his skill and his basketball acumen are viewed as his best assets, and yet he didn't shoot it particularly well from the three-point line, and he had a really high turnover rate. So I understand why people are nervous, but on talent alone, let me also make this point. You just put a chip on this guy's shoulder, and you sent him to the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to fuel something in him. Remember, this is the same Heat program that just turned Kel'el Ware and figured out a way to get his motor running, turned him into one of the best picks of last year's draft. I think this is terrific value for Miami. Miami was linked to Walter Clayton Jr. This week, and I think that very likely would have been the pick. But if you are a Heat fan right now, you are ecstatic about this.
I think so, too. Now, like Fink said, he only shot 31.8% from 3 at Illinois. That's not great, but most people believe he's a better shooter than that. The turnover numbers weren't good either, 3.7 per game. I mean, about every third game, he would turn it over more times than he would actually make a field goal. So these are obvious areas of concern, but 6'5", shot creator, knows how to play. This is lower than I thought he would go. If I'm Miami, I'm thrilled that he fell to me.
Yeah, this feels like a steal, Matt Norland. This feels like Miami rushed up to the table and put their card in, and they said, oh, we're taking Jakucionis. I mean, here's a kid, one of 2 D1 freshmen to average 15, 5, and 4 last season. Who's that other player you asked? Glad you asked. Cooper Flagg. So, sure, you have questions about the turnovers, but this kid's got a great shot, and going to Miami, this feels like value and a great pick.
Yeah, unquestionably. I need a Jesse Pinkman Breaking Bad meme. They can't keep getting away with this. This is unreal. In my estimation, the Miami Heat, with the number 20 pick, just got one of the 10 best players in the 2025 NBA draft. I think it is entirely reasonable to speculate that when we get 4, 5, 6 years on from this draft, that is this guy right here, Jakucionis, that winds up as the best point guard in this entire class. There's a reason why Dylan Harper went number 2. Egor Demin's got incredible passing ability and a really high single as well. But I like his size. I like his command of the pick and roll, which is obviously so vital at the NBA level. No question about it. There was a lot of turned heads. What's going on here? Why is this guy the one that's really falling? And he is one of the biggest fallers. There's another one that still hasn't been picked. We told you about it before the draft started in Jase Richardson. But as a nature of having some surprises, some guys are now dropping that we're not expecting to be here at 21, 22 and lower. In particular, Danny Wolf, Liam McNeely, Asa Newell. Those are players whose camps thought that they would be off the board by 20. Jakucionis' camp thought that he'd be gone by 12 or 13. This is an incredible pick for Miami. It is very possible the Heat just drafted the point guard for the better part of the next decade for that franchise.
Second, this is pretty good. It's a pretty good pick. I would have to say, if I were a fan of the Miami Heat, like Gary, like Adam said, I'd be excited. We have a Miami Heat fan up in our newsroom, and I know he's happy because, look, this is a fun team to watch. They play a fun brand of basketball. I know it didn't work out with Jimmy Butler there, but like this is a recharge here when you get a guy this late in the draft.
You know what they're doing? They're rebuilding without bottoming out because they're nailing the draft. It is 100% key. It's key to maintaining your fan base, to maintaining the local interest, and it's also key to the culture that they are trying to build there because Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, by extension, they're not interested in tanking. And because they've hit the draft, the irony of this is Pat Riley was once on record as saying he didn't believe in the draft. And they are nailing the draft. Tyler Herro, Jaime Jaquez, Kel'el Ware. Now they get Kasparas Jakucionis. They drafted Bam. I mean, they are building through the draft like very few other teams in the NBA, and give them all the credit in the world.
All right, well, hat tip again to the Miami Heat. Kasparas Jakucionis doesn't have to change his hat. He can keep rocking that Miami Heat one. Back here on the clock and back-to-back picks out of Illinois. Kasparas Jakucionis and now Will Riley headed to the Washington Wizards. This was part of a trade. The Utah Jazz and Wizards completing a trade. And, well, Riley is headed to our nation's capital. Big Ten sixth man of the year last season. 13 points per game, 4 rebounds, couple assists. Back here in studio with Adam Finkelstein, 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting. Will Riley to the Washington Wizards gives what grade?
I'm going C+ on this because this is an upside swing similar to what we saw last year when they took Keyshawn George. Will Riley, first of all, he's got terrific positional size. He's 6'8" and change without shoes on, so effectively he's 6'9". 32.5% from the three-point line, but if you believe in the upside, you believe that the shooting is going to click, and you're optimistic about some of the playmaking you saw late in the season for Illinois. So there's definite upside, don't get me wrong, but we're a long ways away. I mean, you can see physically he does not have the frame, the physical strength to play through contact at the NBA level right now. He's going to need a lot of time, and I just don't know. It seems like they have duplicating parts right now. Guys like various picks over the last couple of years. You got Bilal Coulibaly, you got Keyshawn George, you got Tre Johnson, AJ Johnson, all in that mix now, and we'll have to see who they can find minutes for to develop.
All right, so welcome back CBS Sports senior writer Matt Norlander, who joins us as well on our draft coverage on the clock presented by Jeep. Back-to-back picks out of Illinois here. Will Riley, what can you say about Will Riley now headed to Washington?
Well, intriguing here that Illinois has back-to-back picks when Kasparas Jakucionis gets a top 10 grade for us at CBS, and Will Riley was outside of our top 30 in our consensus rankings here. So they wind up being sandwiched next to each other in the draft. But as prospects, we actually had a pretty wide gulf between these two, and I happened to side with my colleagues who opted to put him outside the top 30. So want to give our viewers some good intel, some good insight, some balanced coverage, and some legitimate opinions here. I'm not big on Will Riley. I don't think he's the 21st best prospect in this class. I think there are guys on the board right now like Asa Newell, like Liam McNeely, like Danny Wolf, who I think will prove to be better pros, better picks. As Adam said, it's an upside swing. There's no preventing him from being a really, really good pick, but you're trying to, at this stage, at this point, once you get to like 18 to 24, 25, you really get a sense of when you look at mock drafts in the days and weeks leading into draft night, how they become a bit of a dart throw because teams will trade into these spots very frequently, and the things that they are looking for from players in this spot, it varies drastically by franchise. And though we cannot know what every franchise is doing in terms of their overall draft boards, I guarantee you, although Will Riley went here, he might have been 3 spots higher on some teams' draft boards and might be 20 spots lower on another team's draft board. So the Wizards, clearly, they want to go young here and take an interesting upside swing. But personally, there's 5, 6, 7 other prospects for me easily that I would have taken ahead of Riley in this spot.
In other words, it's a reach.
It is a reach. There's
Yes.
not a whole lot of prospects like this in this year's draft because a lot of them went back to college.
Yeah.
So in most years, you have these fringe first-round guys who aren't yet ready to play NBA basketball, but are trying to get to the league as quick as they can. This year, there was too much money in college basketball,
Absolutely.
so the vast majority of them went back. The 2 guys that stayed in, the perception was Will Riley and Drake Powell were the guys who no one thinks is ready to play right now, likely going to go down in the G League, and if they hit it, it'll be years down the road.
And a player from North Carolina is the next pick, headed to the Brooklyn Nets. UNC's Drake Powell. Look, this is also, I don't know what to think. Give me something here that I'm supposed to think about this pick here for the Nets, because I'm starting to wonder if the Brooklyn Nets are going to end up in that category, biggest winners and losers on the night. They're going to end up in the losers column.
Do you want to do the grade?
No, I don't.
No,
But
okay.
that's your job,
Yeah.
because you're going to be the one. You're going to be giving the people
Old
on
takes
social media.
exposed. Here we go. I would say this. I think this is a little bit of a reach. I mean, the upside again is a 3-and-D wing. But the offense is not there yet. The shooting is not there. The offense in general is not there. He's a good athlete. He's got long arms. He defends. He's a high-character kid. He's about all the right things. The theme of this class for Brooklyn, when you look at Egor Demin, Nolan Traore, and Drake Powell, I walk away thinking they think they can develop shooters with their player development program. Because if these 3 guys all shoot the ball, then they'll all be fine. but those are the question marks for every single player they've taken so far. And with Demin's question marks and the defensive end of the floor as well, those things are starting to multiply. But again, if he shoots, he'll be okay, but he's not NBA ready right now. He's not going to help him win next year.
Matt, the first 3 picks here for Brooklyn, Egor Demin, and then Nolan Traore, and now Drake Powell. How would you grade, how would you describe their draft class to this point?
It has the potential to be a huge bust, but it also has the potential to look like one of the smartest draft classes 4 or 5 years down the road if these guys hit. But these are big swings. Powell here is interesting. My sources were telling me that Atlanta was looking strongly at, coincidentally enough, was looking strongly at Powell in this spot to begin with, and Asa Newell. But obviously Atlanta is finding, and I get why Atlanta is doing this. They are now moving back twice here in the first round because they are quite clearly of the belief that the guys that are going to be available in the back end of the first round, and then when we get to the draft in the second round on Thursday, are basically just as impactful, if not better, than the guys that are being moved up and giving up assets to get into this spot. I've been consistent on this with Drake Powell since he declared for the draft. The irony for me here with Drake Powell is this. Listeners to the Eye on College Basketball podcast heard it all leading into last college basketball season. I thought Drake Powell was going to be one of the 7 to 10 best freshmen in the country last season. I loved him coming into North Carolina. Ironically enough, I didn't think that this was a wise decision to go after 1 year because I thought he had a chance to come back to Carolina as a sophomore and turn himself into a pure, no doubt about it, top 20, maybe even a lottery pick. But guess what? I was wrong because Powell, he impressed majorly in workouts. The athleticism is undeniable. There's really a belief that he can grow into a top 10 perimeter defender as a guard in the league. And he justified his decision by getting drafted this high. Now, will the fit be good? Are we going to get to the end of this first round? Is Brooklyn going to trade any of these picks? I guess that waits and remains to be seen. But from an athleticism standpoint, from an approach standpoint, IQ standpoint, the interviews, they came back all well, but I'm with Adam on this. I think we like Drake Powell in theory, but what does he become in the next 2, 3, 4 years? And unfortunately, as Adam will tell you as well, when you get into this range of the draft, and even earlier, you are often drafting not for a player that you're going to have. Like what Brooklyn might be doing here with Drake Powell is drafting to develop him, and then eventually, some years down the road, send him somewhere else where he will grow into the player that Brooklyn hopes he will be to begin with, but is unlikely to be in the next few years.
Where are we grading this pick?
C+.
Okay.
It's a swing. It's all a swing. If I didn't have more faith in, it's only because of the faith in their player development program that I'm not being more critical.
I hope it hits for him.
Me too.
I hope it does. I hope it hits for him. Our producer's a Brooklyn Nets fan. He sounds...
well, that's a good reason to keep it at a C+ then.
He sounds a little distraught right now. So I'm going to try to get everybody excited again. Back here on CBS Sports HQ on the clock, presented by Jeep. The hometown kid is staying in his hometown. Asa Newell from Atlanta, went to Georgia, now going to be playing professionally for the Atlanta Hawks with the 23rd overall selection. Take a look at his ranks among Division I freshmen last season. Offensive rebounds, that's an underrated statistic. Mike White, his head coach at Georgia, said, quote, he's the same guy every day. He could start a game missing his first 4 shots and might make his next 4. His facial expression, not going to change. He's still going to be compliant in terms of making winning plays, passing to the guy that's open, chasing offensive rebounds, closing out correctly. It's a good player here. This is part of the Montverde Academy that obviously Liam McNeely was a part of. Cooper Flagg headlining. This is a quality pick at 23. I like this pick. Do you like this pick, Adam Finkelstein?
Yeah, B+. First of all, here's what you need to know about Asa. 6'9" without shoes on. Measured a little bit less than people were hoping. He's someone who has historically played the 4 and the 5 at that size. He's a little undersized to play small ball 5 in the NBA, but good athlete, high motor. So good finisher, can guard pick and roll in a couple different ways. In high school, we had some optimism about his long-term shooting potential. We didn't see a ton of growth in that area last year at Georgia, but they didn't really utilize him that way either. They allowed him to take some, but by their own admission, really didn't work to develop that part of his game. If that starts to hit in the NBA, this will be looked back upon as a steal. And the fact that they picked up a couple of additional assets to move back and get their guy is just signs of a good process.
Yeah, he averaged 15 and 7 in his 1 year in the SEC, and it happened to be the 1 year that the SEC was the best conference in the history of college basketball. So to do that against much older players consistently, super impressive. But he mostly got by on what Adam is talking about, the athleticism and the motor. He just played hard, and he's physically more gifted than most of the people he was playing against. In the NBA, that's not going to be enough. That shot's going to have to come around. And he only shot 29.2% from three in this one season of college basketball. Obviously, there's room for improvement, but he's got to improve that if he wants to have a long career.
11 o'clock on the East Coast as we near the end of the first round of the NBA draft. Back here on CBS Sports HQ. On the clock, presented by Jeep. There's only one. Nique Clifford headed to Sacramento. There was a trade between Oklahoma City Thunder and the Sacramento Kings, and OKC trading out of that spot, sending Nique Clifford to the Kings. And he had a good season at Colorado State, 6'6", 200 pounds, only Division I player to average 18, 9, and 4 last season. Back here in studio, Adam Finkelstein, 24/7 Sports Director of Scouting, CBS Sports Insider Gary Parrish alongside. As you take a look at the comp to Larry Bird as well, it's pretty incredible. It's only the last 2 instances in Division I, 680 points, 300 rebounds, 150 assists. You like the selection here, headed to the Kings? What's your grade?
It's a B, and yeah, I think it's very solid. Here's what you need to know about Nique Clifford. First of all, he's versatile. He's a guy who's a good athlete on the perimeter. He's an excellent perimeter rebounder, very good defender, good cutter, solid passer. Now, the reason he became an NBA prospect in the last 2 years after he arrived at Colorado State is because he made substantial gains with his shooting. If those gains prove to be sustainable, then he's a very solid NBA player for a long time, but that is the critical variable.
Yeah, he shot above 37% from three in 3 of the past 4 seasons of college basketball. So that's a skill. Rebounded nearly 10 a game from the perimeter, like Fink said. That's an obvious skill. One of the turnoffs for some franchises will be that, you know, he played 5 years of college basketball. He's 23 years old already. But I'm never bothered by that as much as some, because, like, there's nothing wrong with having a 23-year-old who can jump into your rotation from day one, and Nique Clifford is the type of guy who could theoretically do that.
All right, let's go back out to Avery Johnson, who's in Dallas, where they are celebrating Cooper Flagg, drafted #1 overall. Now the Kings drafting Nique Clifford in a trade here with the OKC Thunder. What are they getting here, the Sacramento Kings, in Clifford?
Well, they're getting a veteran-type player, a mature player. I had a chance to cover Nique Clifford several times over the last 2 years for CBS Sports Network. My parameter with players playing in the Mountain West is how do you play against San Diego State? San Diego, especially against their home crowd, the show, in their loss against San Diego State, Nique Clifford was 5 for 16. When Colorado State beat San Diego State, he was 8 for 15 for 21 points. So that was always kind of my barometer, playing against that tough, hard-nosed San Diego State team. You know, Brian Dutcher's done a tremendous job with that team. So this young man, I think, will be able to walk in and play immediately. He's not a starter day one, but can he be a rotational player on the Sacramento Kings? I say absolutely.
All right, so Nique Clifford headed to the Sacramento Kings with the 25th overall selection. The Orlando Magic selecting Jase Richardson, the kid who can jump out of the gym from Michigan State. A lot of people had him mocked higher in this first round. What's your grade here?
This is a B+. This is actually exactly where I had him mocked.
Okay.
Because I think Orlando needs 2 things following the Desmond Bane trade. They need backcourt depth, and they need floor spacing in the form of shooting. And Richardson checks both of those boxes. He was exceptionally efficient and simultaneously versatile this year at Michigan State. Scored at different spots on the floor and did it at a very high ratio. He even finished better at the rim than you would expect, because he's still physically undeveloped in terms of his frame, and his basketball IQ is very, very high. Now the problem is he's not 6'3". In fact, he measured in at 6.5 inches, 6 feet and 1/2 inches. So the combo guard thing is going to be tough at that size in the NBA. We'll have to see if he can evolve into a true point guard, but he gives them the shooting and the backcourt depth that they needed.
Yeah, Orlando finished dead last in 3-point field goal percentage this past season. So Desmond Bane helps that, but they needed more, and he does provide that. If you look at the season 3-point percentage, it's not as impressive as what I'm about to tell you, but what I'm about to tell you is true. Over the final 15 games of his college career, he shot 42% from 3. The issue is the size. He's little, you know, he's little. and he's not a true point guard, and you can really get bullied on the defensive end of the court because though he is the son of a professional basketball player, he's not a great athlete. He's a good athlete, but not like off the charts athlete. So Little, not an elite athlete. You got some stuff working against you, but he knows how to play, knows how to change speeds, and he can make a shot. I'm a believer.
Did I hear that right? Did you say a B?
B+, I think.
B+.
I just heard GP call the guy little 3 times and say he was going to get bullied.
It's always relative to other NBA players. He's big relative to me.
You're little. You're going to get bullied.
6'3", 185.
He's big.
He's not 6'3".
He's big compared to me.
Michigan State listed him at 6'3". He got measured at 6 feet and 1/2 inches.
Yeah, he's big compared to me, but little relative to most of the people he's going to be asked to guard.
B+ you gave it.
B+.
Okay. All right. Matt, Norlander's going to join the conversation here on Jase Richardson. You heard Adam, he said B+. You spent some time, of course, in East Lansing with Tom Izzo. You knew that three-point shooting was their problem this past season. But as you heard Gary, Jase came on at the end of the season. What do you think here of this pick, the fit for Jase Richardson?
Yeah, did I hear a D out of Gary Parrish on this, by the way? D from Gary Parrish on the Jase Richardson.
No D.
I don't give grades.
He's dying to do it.
He's dying to do it.
I know.
He's not giving Ds. There's no Ds. We've not given out a failing grade yet.
I had to bring it back for old time's sake. We'll get into that on the podcast after the draft is done. I'm not surprised here at all. Orlando is looking to draft a guard almost regardless of which guard, what the best player available here. I think that they were always destined to take a guard in this spot. I think in their heart of hearts, they were hoping Walter Clayton Jr. would fall to 25. I just think that it was off the board for days now at this point. Richardson is going to have a chance. I don't think he's going to be a player that's going to be playing relevant minutes for the Magic over the next 2 seasons. He's going to be a locker room boost. He's going to do the job. He's having a father who not only at one point I believe played for Orlando, who has spent well over a decade in the league. This is all going to help him. Like I believe that he will stick in the league. He has plenty of work to do on his body. He's got to. I agree with Adam. He has to grow into a true point guard. He is barely over 6 feet. If you look at the amount of players, I think it's in the single digits at this point in the NBA. How many guys are 6 feet or under? Now he technically beats that threshold by a half inch. He's just going to have a lot of work to do there. And as I said before the draft started earlier tonight, there was concern that he would drop from once thought to be a pick in the teens. He did have the medical with his knee, and he's been a good player in spite of that. But sometimes teams will look at that and give it another reason as to why, you know what? All things being equal, we're going to take a chance on someone else as opposed to an undersized guard, one-and-done player who wasn't expected to initially be a one-and-done player. Good for Jase Richardson. He played himself into this spot. I think he sticks in the league, but I'm not sure if he'll wind up being a starting-level point guard at any point in his career.
You like those new unis?
The new unis.
Yeah, the Orlando Magic. Right? Yeah, they look good.
But I still go back to, as a young person growing up in Memphis and Penny Hardaway goes to Orlando, I still go back to those pinstripes.
They're similar. They got a similar look. It's a throwback to it. You got to take a look. It's pretty good. They look pretty good. Back here on CBS Sports HQ, On the Clock, presented by Jeep. There's only one. The Brooklyn Nets' latest selection out of Israel, Ben Saraf, the Israeli League premier rising star and a FIBA U18 European Championship MVP. So just to recap, with the first 4 picks, Egor Demin, Nolan Traore, Drake Powell, and Ben Saraf now. And back here with Adam Finkelstein and Gary Parrish, your grade here for this selection is what?
It's a B. Saraf is a jumbo southpaw guard. He's 6'6". He's got a strong frame. He's arguably one of, if not the best live dribble passer in this draft. So he's very creative. He puts a ton of pressure on the rim, great positional size. The question, again, comes down to the shooting. So I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier. I think the trend you are seeing in Brooklyn is that they are willing to invest in their player development program, specifically when it comes to getting guys to make shots.
And it might work, but I don't love the idea of getting a bunch of, I don't want to say non-shooters, but people who have shooting concerns all in the same draft and just hoping you can figure out how to get these numbers improved. Because with these draft picks across the board, it's talented guard, lots of potential, but there are concerns about whether he'll ever be a high-level shooter. We've consistently said this about draft picks tonight going to Brooklyn, and here we are again.
All right, so they have the next pick at 27 as we await to hear what they do. But Ben Saraf is the latest selection. And Brooklyn, look, trying to make something happen, right? I mean, they're trying to resuscitate their franchise. It didn't work out with KD and Kyrie and James Harden. So they're trying to come up with something here. The Brooklyn Nets taking the big man out of Michigan, Danny Wolf, with the 27th overall selection. What do you think of that?
B+. I'm surprised he lasted this long, and what you have now is someone who's 6'11" and a legitimate playmaker. He operated like a point forward this year for Michigan, often initiating the offense. His ability to handle and pass the ball at his size is very, very rare, and now you're starting to see that trend. So Brooklyn, with the exception of Drake Powell, everybody is a playmaker. So, and they got playmaking size as well. Serif's big for his size. Traore, for a point guard, pretty big for his size. Danny Wolf's big for his size. Egor Demin, if you think he's a point guard, he's really big. I think he's a forward. You've got positional size. You've got multiple playmakers across the floor. And I'm going to keep saying it. Somebody's going to have to develop him as a shooter, but that's going to be key. Multiple playmakers is a formula to winning in the NBA, but spacing is a requisite.
That's the thing. He can shot create, and he looks comfortable taking the shot. But in 3 years of college, he only shot 33% from three. Now, the good news is that he started in the Ivy League, transferred to Michigan, and really didn't miss a beat. Every time a guy transfers up, the numbers don't consistently stay the same. But with Wolf, he was an impactful player in the Big Ten, just like he was an impactful player in the Ivy League. So there's a lot of stuff to like here. But yes, the shooting numbers are going to have to improve.
And Hakeem, let me make this point too. If you're Brooklyn, you're not necessarily saying all 5 of these guys are going to play together for the next decade. You're thinking 3 of these 5 have to hit. I mean, that's how NBA executives, they think in terms of probability. They don't think this guy is a foregone conclusion at the 27th pick in the draft. They think, okay, what are the chances that this guy hits? And with 5 picks, you basically just get 5 swings of the bat, and you're hoping you connect on 3 of them, maybe 4.
Yeah, think about like if you walk into a convenience store and buy a lottery ticket.
Yep.
You don't really care which of the 5 lottery tickets you buy happens to
Sometimes
hit.
none of them hit, though.
Most times, none of them hit.
That's problematic.
But if you could think about it in those terms, you're buying 5 lottery tickets here. You know they're not all going to hit. You're just hoping 1 of them, 2 of them, 3 of them hit really well.
This is the first time that we've had a team with 5 selections in the first round and make all 5 selections here.
I'm surprised by that.
I'm surprised. I guess I'm curious as to why you wouldn't package some of your picks and move up to get a higher quality player, maybe a player that can help you right now. I don't know what the thinking is of Sean Marks. I'm not in that war room with them. But when you consider all the draft currency they had, you wouldn't move up at all to maybe take another player?
We don't know if they tried. You know, we don't know if they went in and tried to get Ace Bailey, and then somebody said, no, Utah's going to take him, so we're not dealing. The other thing I would say is Saraf is someone who doesn't have to come over right now. So you're in a position where, yes, you have 5 picks, but you may only be bringing 4 into your team next year. Those are things we don't know. I would be shocked if there weren't discussions about potential trades that went on this week in Brooklyn. In fact, in our intel piece, we reported that we were told there were, in fact. But just because there's discussions doesn't mean there's something that necessarily made sense to them. This might not have been, again, in a draft room. You have various scenarios. I'm sure some of these scenarios were trading, consolidating picks. But this one, it turned out to make all 5.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that they made all 5 of these picks. Again, it had never happened in the history of the NBA draft. And it doesn't mean all 5 of these guys are going to be on Brooklyn's main roster next season. You could have somebody spending real time in the G League, somebody not even coming over. But bringing all 5 of these players into the franchise at the same time, again, questionable on some level, if only because it's wildly unusual, in fact, unprecedented.
All right, let's bring back Matt Norlander, CBS Sports senior writer. And Matt, look, Danny Wolf is a talented 7-footer. This is no discredit to what they just did getting Danny Wolf. What did you see in Danny Wolf and how his game translates to the NBA level?
Well, you know, I live here in Connecticut. I saw Danny Wolf play multiple times in person when he was at Yale, and his skill set was glaringly obvious. I was not shocked whatsoever when he transferred to Michigan that he wound up being one of the most impactful transfers in the country last season. We talked about it on the Eye on College Basketball podcast. I fully expected Michigan to be one of the better teams in the country, even in its first year under Dusty May. And because of the transfer class on the whole, but really Wolf is one of the centerpieces there. This is a very good story. I mean, Wolf is from Chicago. He comes to Yale, and he parlays this into being a first-round NBA pick. Just, you know, big picture, those few plot points. You don't often get that. And for the Ivy League to, although he is not coming directly from the Ivy League, but the Ivy League to produce a first-round draft pick is obviously a really good story from that end as well. Just a couple of quick points off of what Adam and GP were talking about. There's no doubt about it that Wolf needs to improve the shot. I had heard from a few NBA sources in the past 48 hours that, you know, I remain high on Wolf. I actually think Wolf will have one of the 15 best NBA careers of any players in this class. I truly believe that. Wow. I kind of wonder, by being a part of this Brooklyn class, if that doesn't maybe get stunted, but we'll see. If you're good enough, the play should bear that out. But I heard from sources who, you know, if not insisted, really were passing along to me earlier on Wednesday, on Tuesday, that they thought Wolf was destined to go somewhere in the 20s. But I'll tell you, Wolf's camp did not think that. They thought Minnesota was heavily interested, likely to do it. They thought Brooklyn would be the landing spot in the teens. And if not that, one of the picks right there around 17, 19, 20 overall. Inevitably, he falls here to Brooklyn with another pick. I am also one other note here with what Brooklyn has decided to do. It's fascinating. I do think they did try and make some sort of trades, but I would say this. Even though I had a GM in the Eastern Conference text me 30 minutes before the draft started and thought Brooklyn was going to try and move up from number 8, I don't think that was the case. They took Demin there. No one was going to take Demin. So Brooklyn's approach overall is a bit vexing, and there's just the fact that they are seemingly not going to trade any of these picks is going against the expectation of basically any team surrounding them at any of their picks league-wide. So it will be interesting, but I'm in on Danny Wolf, and I'd say I'm nearly as in on him, if not more so, than Demin. I do think he has a healthy chance to become the best player that Brooklyn drafted on Wednesday night.
You heard Matt there. He thinks Danny Wolf has the best chance to be the best player in that class.
And real quick, actually, Hakeem, real quick on that. Another reason why I believe that is I think Danny Wolf's one of the 3 or 4 best passers in this draft. And I say that knowing full well that we have some downright dazzlers, particularly with Demin. Queen, another great passing big. I think Wolf's vision, I saw it in person at Michigan practices multiple times in person this season. The shot needs to improve. He absolutely needs to become a reliable 36, 37% plus three-point shooter in order for defense to respect him. If he doesn't do that, it's not going to matter. But the way he will help facilitate that offense, I think will be very key.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl said he's got Larry Bird type ball handling. He's a gifted player. If Danny Wolf comes out of this class here with Brooklyn, would you be surprised if he's the one that earns an all-star nod in a couple years?
Yes.
You would be.
If he's an NBA All-Star?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Five picks, maybe down the road, maybe not even 2 years, maybe 4 or 5.
I loved Danny. When he was in high school, I told everybody he was a high major player. Nobody listened to me. He went to Yale. But if we're calling him an NBA All-Star, yeah, that's
I'm saying the best chance, let's say in the next 5 years, out of that draft class, Egor Demin, Nolan Traore, Drake Powell, Ben Saroff, and Danny Wolf, who are you going to say, this is the guy in 5 years could be an NBA All-Star?
Do I have to say one of them?
No, you don't have to, but you can make it.
Yeah, I might say 0.
Okay, there you go. Say 0.
It's a hard thing to do, but to Norlander's point, I think I can maybe split the difference here.
Please.
I would stop short of any of these guys.
I was going to say 0.
Are somebody I expect to be an NBA All-Star, but I don't think it's crazy to think that Danny Wolf could be the best player Brooklyn selected on this night.
It's not crazy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Not crazy.
Back here on CBS Sports HQ, On the Clock, presented by Jeep. There's only one 28th overall selection. The Boston Celtics selecting Hugo Gonzalez, 6'6", 200 pounds, out of Spain. Boston going international here at the end of the first round. Back here in studio, Adam Finkelstein and Gary Parrish. Adam, Hugo Gonzalez, not a name that everybody knows. What should we know about him? What's the grade here for the C's?
It's a B-. He had a big early reputation. In fact, he's been in the Real Madrid system since 2019. And big wing, physical, good athlete, high motor, a lot of defensive upside. I think that's really the intrigue here, is someone who can come in and be a factor on the defensive end of the floor. His best offense right now is in transition, and I'm going to say it again here. The shooting is the swing skill. Just 29% last year, GP, and that number has got to improve, especially in Boston, where they fire those threes.
Right. They're going to shoot as many as anybody, and if you're on the court for them, you're going to be expected to take open shots and be able to make them. To this point in his career, he hasn't been able to do that reliably, but he's also only 19 years old. Beyond that, it's the defensive stuff that makes him a first-round prospect. He's got the proper size, proper strength. He projects as a versatile defender who's going to be able to switch things, but if you can't make a shot on the other end, you're going to have a hard time getting on the court. And on that note, let it be known with Real Madrid, he had a hard time getting on the court.
Do you have a follow-up? No.
No?
Okay, well then I'm going to follow up with Avery Johnson here. Avery, what do you think of the selection here? Hugo Gonzalez, 28th to the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, and Gary, his last point, he had a hard time getting on the floor. What did he average, 11 minutes a game? I think this is a situation where it's G League written all over it. Keep your eyes on J.D. Davison, who actually was the guy that I was his first Power 5 offer when I was coaching at Alabama. Discovered him at a small AAU tournament. So look for J.D., who's been laboring in their G League, especially with Drew Holiday being traded. You know, he's gotten some experience. But I think with this pick with Hugo Gonzalez, I could see him spending next year basically in the Boston Celtics G League team. Good pick and roll passer, but again, as Fink talked about, he's got to develop a much better outside shot to play in this Boston Celtics three-point shooting system.
It's the Charlotte Hornets, and they take the kid out of UConn. Liam McNeely set a UConn freshman scoring record in a Big East game with 38 points in a win over Creighton back in February. Liam McNeely, part of the Montverde 4, as all 4 of those kids get drafted. Cooper Flagg goes, of course, to Dallas. Derik Queen going to New Orleans. Asa Newell going to the Hawks. And now Liam McNeely headed to the Charlotte Hornets. Late pick, goes in the first round. Adam, I know you like Liam McNeely. What's your grade here for this pick?
This is an A. This is a steal for Charlotte. When you get to the 29th pick in the first round, what you're looking for is a surefire NBA player, and Liam McNeely is a surefire NBA player. He's a 6'8" wing who was really the primary offensive domino for most of the season at UConn this year when he was healthy. Of course, he really wasn't healthy for most of the year. He had couple different ankle injuries. He had a case of pneumonia that wasn't widely reported. I think he is terrific value at this spot in the floor, and there is little doubt in this spot in the draft, pardon me. There's little doubt in my mind that he's a vastly better shooter that we saw last year, that he's an ultra competitor. He's a very smart player, and I think this guy's a pro for the next 10 years plus.
This is somebody I thought would go in the teens. So for him to be available this deep in the draft, that's a nice win for Charlotte. And Fink mentioned the shooting. It was only 31.7% in this one season at UConn, but as we've spent all night long talking about the shooting needs to improve for this prospect or that prospect, that's not a real number for Liam McNeely. I mean, yeah, you can pull up the box scores and that's the number it'll spit out, but front office executives understand this guy has a long track record of being a reputable shooter. It reminds me on some level, I'm not comparing them as players, but only in this way. When Bradley Beal came out of Florida, he only shot 33.9% from 3. And I just remember talking to scouts who said we don't care because we've seen him on EYBL. We've seen him throughout high school. We know he can shoot. And throughout Bradley Beal's career, I think every season but one in the NBA, he's shot better from 3 than he did in that one season at Florida. I bet you Liam McNeely has something similar when we get deep into his career.
14.5 points by Liam McNeely last season, named Big East Freshman of the Year. Matt Norlander saw him several times in person, and you heard Adam say this is a steal at the end of the first round because here's a guy that can go and play right away into your lineup.
Unquestionably. This is, I mean, we talked earlier tonight about how well Utah did. Charlotte as well. I mean, they get Kon Knueppel, and that felt him, 4 as expected, I guess. But then McNeely at 29. McNeely's camp thought his floor was like 20, maybe 21. It's kind of mind-boggling how he was still here. I'm fairly, with the caveat I'm always willing to be wrong, fairly confident that we are going to get to the end of the first contract cycle of everyone that was drafted in the first round here 4 years on from this. And Liam McNeely is going to be among the at least 13 or 14 best players in this draft, and it is entirely possible that he's just a legit pro. I mean, he is just so mentally tough, willing to work awesome locker room guy. The intel reports come back on him from a personality standpoint so well. He could grow into one of the 10 or 8 best players from this draft. So Charlotte has done extremely well for himself. I know it's a little bit of a bitter pill when you're sitting there in that green room and you're waiting, and every pick seems like it's taking an hour. And I'm sure, like, you know, Dan Hurley and that UConn staff are probably befuddled how they, you know, their one-and-done star had to sit there and wait, and then via a trade to Charlotte to even go this late. But who knows? Maybe he winds up going to the place that needs him most, and this is meant to be, because between Knueppel and McNeely, Charlotte just picked up, you know, 2 of the, I don't know, 5 or 6 most mentally tough, won't back down, just going to get in your face and just up for any challenge of all prospects that are out there. Really good night for the Hornets.
All right, so there you go. High praise there from Matt Norlander. Already, the Charlotte Hornets a big winner already on this night before we get to the final pick.
I think so. I mean, there's some questions about fit stuff. I mean, LaMelo Ball's a negative defender. Knueppel guards better than you would think, but still is never going to make an all-defensive team. And then McNeely, if there are questions about him, it's on the defensive end of the court, questions about his athleticism. So I'm not sure what the end product will look like, but I do like this. Like Fink said, they have drafted 2 players who have clearly defined NBA skills. With Knueppel, it's the shooting, and McNeely, though the percentage isn't as good, that's a clear skill for him. He's an NBA shooter.
All right, so the last pick here in the first round of the NBA draft, Yanic Konan Niederhauser. Who? Yanic Konan Niederhauser. He played at Penn State.
Yes.
Okay, just letting you know. People out there might be going, who is this guy? Well, he led the Big Ten, 2 blocks per game last season, 13 points per game, 6 rebounds, 61% from the floor. Good shooter. Adam, Yanic Konan Niederhauser to the LA Clippers. Your grade is what for this one?
I give this one a B. 7-footers who are high-level athletes are pros until they prove otherwise. And this guy was one of the big winners from the Combine in Chicago, not just because of the way he measured, but also because of the way he conducted himself in the athletic testing. He played well there as well. And I think when you think about guys like Ryan Kalkbrenner, who are still on the board, this speaks to the fact that some players, especially the physically gifted ones, when you have size and athleticism and you can move a little bit, they fit the NBA game better than they may the college game. I know that's sometimes confusing for fans to understand. How could this guy get picked over someone like Ryan Kalkbrenner? Same way Will Riley can get picked over someone like Liam McNeely. But it's ultimately about how the game's just a little different in the NBA level. This is a vertical spacer, a lob threat, shot blocker, rim runner. Could be a backup big for the Clippers.
Norlander and I joked about it on a recent episode of the Eye on College Basketball podcast. During the season, we record at least 3 times per week.
Yes.
This young man spent multiple years in college. We never said his name, not one time, till we started previewing the 2025 NBA draft. Give credit to our colleague Cal Boone, who handles a lot of the NBA draft coverage for CBS Sports. When we did a mock draft for the Eye on College Basketball earlier in the week, he had Yanic being picked in the first round. Most people did not, but Fink's got it exactly right. 7-foot athlete. That's a good place to start. Now we'll see what else we can do with it.
All right, the first round of the NBA draft is in the books. The last name, Yanic Konan Niederhauser. Make sure you get his jersey if you're a Clippers fan. That'll be a good one to have. Maybe he'll
have to be.
Right, maybe he'll be an all-star. Maybe he'll
Everybody's an all-star.
Maybe he'll be an all-star. I'm just trying to help the folks who are trying to get excited. Look, I didn't have a first-round pick in the Cavaliers because they traded them all away.
You only had 64 wins.
I know. Well, then they got hurt in the playoffs. Thank you. Yeah, and then they ended up losing.
Well, then everybody else got hurt, so you'll be the projected favorite heading into next season.
Thank you. See, the East is wide open. So, Cleveland, this is for you. # let them know.